Okay, well, I want to welcome everybody to the July 14th Board of Commissioners meeting. As you know, it's the middle of the summer. There's nothing going on here in the county. I think I have like a 250-page agenda book here, so it should be another great example of democracy in action in Cobb and in America. But let's get started on the right foot today. We have Pastor Tim Wren from the Christ Lutheran Church to lead us on our invocation, followed by firefighter Travis Devers to lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance. So those who are willing and able, please stand.
I invite you to take a moment to bow your head in prayer. Good and gracious God, we give you thanks on this day. We give you thanks for the ways in which you continue to wake us up. We give you thanks for the ways in which you have gifted us. We give you thanks for the birds of the air and for the sunshine that we feel. Lord, we pray for all of our community leaders on this day. We lift up our Board of Commissioners. We pray for those whom they will serve on this day. Lord, calm our hearts and our minds and center us in you as we begin this day. Lord, all this we lift up to you in your most holy and heavenly name. Amen.
Amen.
I will do the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Pastor Wren, firefighter Devers. I would also ask this morning, just for a brief moment of silence for Billy Askia. Billy was a very, very involved citizen of our county, did many great things for his family and his friends in this county, and he passed away recently. So I ask for a moment of silence for him and also think about his family at this time. May he rest in peace. Thank you. All right. Before we get into the agenda today, there's a couple of votes we're going to need to take to add consent, to add a couple of items. One of them will be to add to the consent agenda item number 64. The board previously voted on a agenda item for the juvenile drug court, and they've come back and asked us to amend a previously approved motion that we passed on June 23rd. So I ask at this time, make a motion to add to the consent agenda the following agenda item: to approve a grant award in the amount of $93,772 from the Criminal Justice Coordinating Council for the period of July 1, 2020 through June 30th, 2021 to support the juvenile drug court program, authorize the transfer of all authorized personnel from Unit SO62 to SO77 in the grant fund, authorize corresponding budget transactions, authorize juvenile court administrator Adolphus Graves or program coordinator Kathy Gorell to sign quarterly reimbursement requests on behalf of the county, and further authorize the chairman to execute the necessary documents. Do we have a second? A second? Any discussion? All in favor? Oh, we can actually raise your hand, please. Thank you. Passes 5-0. The second one is to add to the regular agenda. This will be item number 65. Following up on a presentation by Superintendent Grant Rivera yesterday. I'd like to make a motion that the Board of Commissioners approve emergency funding for Merit Assist schools in order to provide a safe environment for in-person learning as well as expanded digital learning to support those families who may choose not to send their children back to school as a result of the COVID-19 pandemic, to authorize the current budget transactions, and to authorize the chairman to execute the intergovernmental agreement and any other necessary documents for said purpose. That's correct. It's just added, that's already, we're just adding it to the agenda. We'll have a full discussion once we come back. We have a second. Any discussion? All in favor, please raise your hand. Passes 5-0. Thank you very much for that, board. I appreciate that. All right. Now on to the regular agenda. We have 3 public hearings this morning, and I just want to, very briefly, administratively, we're going to have public hearings this morning on a construction management fee, and then a public hearing on the millage rate and the proposed 2021 budget. Then after that, we're going to have public comment. So the first one's a public hearing on this water contract management, and then the millage rate and budget, and then the following will be a public comment. The first one, well, you can speak for 3 minutes, and there'll be an unlimited number of speakers. For the public comment, we'll divide it up into 6 and 6, and for those persons, they can speak for 5 minutes. And I'll go over those rules again as you come up to the microphone. I just want to make sure that you're in the right place at the right time, because I know your voice is very important, and we want to make sure it's put in the right time slot. So with that, we're going to start the meeting with a public hearing to conduct a public hearing for employment of consultant services where contract fees will likely exceed $100,000 for construction management services, program number C0160. With that, Ms. Jones from the Water Department will lead us through that discussion.
Thank you. Good morning, Chairman and Commissioners. I'm here on behalf of the water system to conduct a public hearing for the employment of construction services where contract fees will likely exceed $100,000 for construction management services, program C0160. And these are consulting services to help us with the construction management for our capital improvement projects.
All right, thank you. So that, I now declare this public hearing open for the employment of consultant services where contract fees will likely exceed $100,000 for construction management services on the program number C0160. Again, the rules are unlimited number of speakers. You have 3 minutes. And so would anyone like to speak or address this issue at this time? Seeing none, I now declare this public hearing closed. All right, and the second is to conduct the first public hearing on the 2020 proposed property tax increase as defined by Georgia law. And there'll be 2 other hearings on this matter. Today's the very first one. The next one is a week from today at night. And then the third one will be the 28th of July night meeting also. So with that, Buddy, you have the floor.
Thank you, sir. Finance is here to ask that we conduct the first public hearing on the 2020 proposed property tax increase as defined by Georgia law.
Okay. So again, same rules. 3 minutes, unlimited number of speakers. Just let us know who you are and where you live. And with that, I now declare this first public hearing open on the 2020 proposed property tax increase as defined by Georgia law. Please, sir. Thank you. Good morning.
I'm glad you put these tissues out so when we start crying, we can wipe our eyes. There's a box right there. Okay, I listened to the presentation yesterday on the budget, and there's a couple of things that struck me. One was, if we don't have a recovery and the revenues aren't there for what they're projecting is, we're coming back to the board to ask the taxpayers to pony up more. Don't balance the budget on the backs of the taxpayers this year that are going through and struggling with the COVID crisis. People have been out of work. People have lost income. And this is a year not to put this on the citizens of this county. Then there's hey, if we get more money, we're going to come back to spend more money. Maybe this is the year to show some restraint and to build our reserves, or even give the taxpayers a break. And one last thing, I just want to say, keep it short. Keeping the millage rate the same is not the same as not having a tax increase. And I've heard that statement made and put out several times. I just want to say that that's not the same as not having a tax increase. If the tax digest goes up and you don't go back to the rollback rate, you have it, and you keep the millage rate the same, you effectively have a tax increase. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Would anyone else like to, please, ma'am, thank you.
This year in particular, my name is Caroline Holko. I live in Marietta, Georgia. This year in particular, I think it's important not to roll back the millage rate, because if I went into Kroger and said last year milk was only $3 and now it's $3.25 and I don't want to pay that, Kroger would not let me have milk. Maintaining the millage rate, in spite of whatever verbal nonsense goes on with the regulations, is not the same thing as a tax increase. An increase in the tax digest is a result of inflation and an increase in property values. We're staring down enough troubles, especially given the absolutely nonsensical presentation that was made for CARES Act funding by Cobb County School Superintendent just yesterday. Now is not the time to start cutting back. We're barely recovered from the original recession, and I'm legitimately concerned for the health and safety of everyone in our county if we can't fund our most basic functions. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, ma'am. Okay, would anyone else like to address this issue on the proposed property tax increase as defined by Georgia law? Okay, seeing none, I now declare this first public hearing closed on the 2020 proposed tax increase as defined by Georgia law. And then the third public hearing is to conduct the first public hearing on the fiscal year 2021 proposed budget. There will be, the second hearing will be a week from today at the night meeting on the 21st of July. And the third hearing will be 2 weeks from today on July 28th at a night meeting. So with that, Buddy?
Thank you, sir. We are asking that we conduct the first of 3 public hearings on the 21 proposed budget.
So again, the same rules, unlimited number of speakers, 3 minutes. Let me know who you are. Let us know who you are and where you live, and we look forward to your comments. So please.
All right, good morning. My name is Anna Clay, and I'm a teacher in the Cobb County School District. I'm here to address the presentation about CARES Act funding yesterday as a portion of the budget hearing today.
Let me do you a favor.
Yes.
If you wait until the public comment, that gives you 5 minutes to speak on that. Whereas now you only get 2 or 3.
Okay, so it's not included in the budget necessarily?
No,
I can
this
wait.
is separate, yes.
I'll wait
This
until the
is-
next
Yeah,
portion.
so I want to give you the opportunity to speak, give you more time to speak, all right? Matter of fact, if you just stay right there, you, I don't see anybody else that wants to talk about the proposed 2021 budget, so I'll now declare that public hearing closed. And again, remind everybody that there'll be 2 more hearings on this. So we're going to now get into the public comment part of this presentation. And Bill, Mr. Rowling, how many speakers do we have?
I'm sorry.
How many
You say,
speakers?
did you say that you'd closed the public hearing?
Yes, I have. I've closed it.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, I was just listening.
That's all right. I know they're distracted there.
Yes, sir, we have 7 speakers this
Okay,
morning.
so if it's all right with the board, we'll hear all 7 initially, okay? So please, the first speaker.
The first speaker is Hill Wright.
Good morning again. A couple of topics. I attended a very interesting hearing at the Marietta City Hall. You see, in the city of Marietta, they don't put up with bait and switch business license applications. Cobb says there's nothing we can do. Marietta not only says there is something we can do, but they do it. Now, Marietta has the same ordinance as Cobb. Marietta knows how to apply the ordinance to stop businesses applying as one type of business and then operating a sex shop instead. I urge this board to reach out to the city of Marietta and get some tutoring. I'm sure they would be glad to educate you on this. One last thing. I haven't confirmed this, but I've heard that the county is going to tax the gross receipts of the small family-owned trash collection companies. That would put these companies out of business. I hope that is not a plan to do this, because there'll be the trash wars if that actually were the plan. People depend on these companies and have for years and like these companies. Thank you.
Mr. Hill, is Mr. Bill Tanks in the back? If you would talk to Mr. Tanks in the back about that, he'll be up to date on where we are on that issue. Okay.
The next public speaker is Caroline Holka.
Good morning, Commissioners. I watched the entirety of the CARES Act presentation by our Cobb County Schools Superintendent yesterday, and I was, in a word, appalled that the only thing he thought to ask for was money for a technology solution that 41% or more of our students are not able to access. I also wanted to note that both Chairman Boyce and Superintendent Ragsdale sit on the board of Cobb Douglas Public Health. The current plan for opening schools in Cobb County is in direct contradiction to the stated guidelines on the Cobb Douglas Public Health website, which states, is the school ready to protect children and employees at higher risk for severe illness? $8.1 million for a software solution to a problem that has already been solved by other software does nothing to further the safety of students or employees. Also, are you able to screen students and employees upon arrival for symptoms and history of exposure? Any no, do not open. And yet, right on the Cobb County School District website, it says, encourage staff, students, families to self-screen before work, school for fever, chills, cough, difficulty breathing, congestion, sore throat, nausea, vomiting, body aches, etc. These two things are incompatible. It is unacceptable that we are placing our most vulnerable populations at risk in this way. I would like to ask the county to do a few things to further the cause of public safety for all citizens, not just those who are able to have a parent work from home or who are affluent enough to already have their own computers and internet. There are a variety of solutions. I would like to ask for an extension of CARES Act funding deadline so that qualified educational nonprofits can have an opportunity to develop proposals that will step into the gaping breach left by our school's leadership. Right now, the county commission, you are the last line of defense. The legislative session is over. Brian Kemp is clearly not going to do anything to mandate the health and safety of our citizens. And our 7-day average daily case rate is almost 3,000, when at the peak, when we shut down, it was less than 1,000. These numbers are appalling. This is a crisis. And currently, the way the school district intends to handle this situation is just putting more people at risk. Do you realize that most of our bus drivers are elderly with chronic health conditions? How does driving a bus where children are packed 3 to a seat keep them safe? Especially in buses that don't have air conditioning. I'm in the air conditioning and my upper lip is sweating. Have you ridden a school bus lately? They've recorded temperatures of up to 135 degrees. People are going to die if we don't take swift and bold action. And right now, y'all are the last line of defense. There are plenty of organizations, educational organizations. STEAM Atlanta operates summer camps. They have computers, they have staff, they have training, but they need assistance finding appropriate spaces. Our in-person schools need sanitation lights, increased filtration, and personal protective gear for our teachers and staff, and our cafeteria workers. Our students and families who are food insecure need to see a much more robust response from all levels of government to support their needs. I'm asking you now to do the humanitarian thing and seek out proposals from organizations that can help protect our most vulnerable citizens. These organizations would have applied for CARES Act funding prior to the guideline, but it wasn't until the 29th that we heard Cobb County Schools' insane reopening plan. I hope that you will give this due consideration. I will be happy to provide names and contact information. I spent 12 hours on the phone over the last week. So the fact that an organization that had almost 4 months to prepare was unable to come up with something better than I need a pile of money for some stupid software is unacceptable. If the community can start creating solutions in less than a week, it is unacceptable that someone who makes 10 times the median income of our poorest families could not find it in his busy schedule to do so. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you.
Leroy Hutchins.
All right. Thank you, Chairman Boyce, Commissioner Cupid, my commissioner, and Commissioner Gambrell, Burrell, and Ott. My name is Leroy Trey Hutchins, and I am a 35-year resident of Cobb County. I received my formative education in Cobb County, attending Otis A. Brumby Elementary, East Cobb Middle School, before my parents built a little home in South Cobb, where I attended Lindley Middle School, graduated from the Cobb County Center for Excellence in the Performing Arts at Pebblebrook High School in the early 90s. I am now raising my children in that same home in South Cobb, where my oldest boys graduated from Pebblebrook High School. One of my youngest sons is at Lindley 6th Grade Academy, and my baby is at Bryan Elementary. On yesterday morning, our Superintendent Chris Ragsdale, presented the body of commissioners with a proposal of $8.1 million for CTLS. Commissioner Gambrell, Cupid, and Ott engaged our superintendent and asked many of the questions we as a community needed answers to, so we say thank you. It's also important to know that Superintendent Ragsdale request involving CTLS didn't involve a vote from the Board of Education when presented on June 25th. In a recent forum, when asked how these funds should be allocated, Board Chairman Bradley Wheeler referenced his desire to see CARES Act resources allocated for PPE to ensure students and staff safety. Board members Dr. Jaha Howard and Sharice Davis echoed those same sentiments. Now this board, the Board of Commissioners, is being asked to vote on a plan not even voted on by the Board of Education. For your questions, I gather this Board of Commissioners would rather see a plan for the Cobb County School District that mirrors such presented by Dr. Rivera of the Marietta City Schools. As a taxpayer and a parent with students within the Cobb County School District, I would also like to see the CARES Act funds allocated to meet the needs of students and staff affected by COVID-19, as represented by Dr. Rivera. So now I stand before you requesting several things. That we remove the Cobb County School District request for funds for CTLS from today's voting agenda, and I believe that was done. Allow our Superintendent Ragsdale, an opportunity to present again with a more thorough and comprehensive list of need. Ensure the needs requested align with supplying technology to the 38,000 students or so who are classified as economically disadvantaged. We get this number by those students who currently qualify for free and reduced lunch. This is an estimate of 16 million as suggested by Commissioner Gambrill on yesterday. Your number was spot on. Putting a laptop in the hands of every economically disadvantaged student is a game changer for that vulnerable population. The decision for digital learning in the fall can become a reality for so many more students. This also aids in having a digital plan in the event schools are closed for weeks at a time due to increased numbers and the possibility of statewide and countywide shelter-in-place orders. Please be reminded, the population of students is countywide from as far north as Ackworth and Kennesaw to Powder Springs in the west to East Cobb and South Cobb. So in addition to access to technology, safety should be our primary concern for our community. Therefore, please ensure that there is adequate plan to provide PPE to the 18,000 employees within the Cobb County School District. We are the largest employer in Cobb County. And so we would ask that this plan be put in place to protect them as well as our students. This should include the availability of masks for every student and employee daily with replaceable inventory. We would also like to see a PPE plan to include cleaning and disinfection supplies. As many of you know, our local stores are in limited supply of hand sanitizer, disinfectant wipes, and other cleaning products. As parents, we would usually send our students to school with a fresh supply in August. With the supplies being in great demand, and in low availability, they are often sold at a premium, making this decision to send students with extra supplies an even greater challenge. Excuse me. With safety being the priority for the anticipated 75% of students attending schools in person, we also would like to see support with infrared thermometers, face shields, and additional support staff. I do not know what the dollar amount is for these things. However, please do not completely dismiss the needs of the families within Cobb that will need this additional layer of support as we prepare to return to school. I believe Dr. Rivera said it best when he said, his leadership decisions and request is about making an immediate value statement. I like that because it speaks directly to the core mission and integrity leading the Marietta schools. So as a Board of Commissioner, you have a similar responsibility as you continue to govern and care for our county and all of its occupants, as well as our quality of life here in Cobb County during this worldwide pandemic. Yes.
Yeah, your time's expired.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Melissa Finzi? Sorry.
Good morning. My name is Millicent Finizzi. I am speaking as a former Cobb County school psychologist, a PTA vice president, and a parent of a student at both Cobb County School and a Marietta City School student as well. Listening to the proposed plans yesterday presented by Mr. Rivera and Mr. Ragsdale, I support the plan that Mr. Rivera presented on behalf of those students, and would urge Mr. Ragsdale to consider his request, and would urge you all to reconsider his request as well. The request for the CTLS software, in my opinion, is putting the cart before the horse. If we do not have technology and access to devices, we will not be able to access that program. Yesterday's session included discussion about why this board was being asked to deal with issues that are considered to be school board matters. The fact is that we, the public, have been asking to include public comment in CCSD board meetings since May and have not been granted that request. I agree with Commissioners Cupid and Ott, who questioned why the district is requesting $8.1 million in funds for CTLS with no inclusion of requested funds for technology, PPE, and implementation of various safety measures. Mr. Ragsdale discussed that the Cobb Schools Foundation has made donations to students with regard to technology and devices. I can speak firsthand to the fact that students in the south part of the county that I represent did not receive devices. Particularly, I can speak to the elementary level. My particular PTA of the Clay Harmony Leland School, we personally purchased 80 Kindle devices for students of need because our students were not able to receive the Chromebooks from the Cobb Schools Foundation. Clay, Harmon, and Leland in particular is a combination of two schools in the South Cobb County. Clay having 400 students with 85% on free and reduced lunch. Harmony Leland having roughly 650 students with 61% free and reduced lunch. These students will not have access to CTLS without sufficient technology and internet. They'll be forced to choose the face-to-face option, thereby increasing their COVID exposure and increasing the risk to public health in the South Cobb County in general. As a former CCSD school psych, I can personally attribute to the CTLS program as being a very wonderful program. I contributed to it personally with the inclusion of interventions for teachers to use with struggling students. It is a great program, and I understand Mr. Ragsdale's push to continue to increase it. However, without the technology and access to internet, our students will not be able to access it, and therefore it is not a top priority. In my capacity as a school psychologist and a PTA representative, I have witnessed firsthand the struggles of families who can't even afford to leave work to attend school meetings, let alone to keep their kids home for a virtual option. So I would ask that you would decline Mr. Ragdale's request at this time, but allow him to return with a proposal that includes provision of technology, internet access, PPE, and other safety precautions. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, ma'am.
Monica Delancey.
Good morning. My name is Monica Delancey. I reside in the Riverside community in Austell, Georgia. First, I would like to say congratulations to Osborne High School class of 2020. Last night, they graduated, and they were the first graduation for our new graduation season. The graduation took place at McEachern High School, and all graduations would take place at McEachern High School for Cobb County School District. So look for celebrations, second celebrations that would take place on the corner of Macklin Road and New Macklin, as you know, all of our graduates will, thankfully, their parents would see them graduate, walk across the stage. So I'm here to request more funding for housing assistance for working families. As you are aware, Cobb County, prior to COVID crisis of March of this year, Cobb County Magistrate Court was already wall-to-wall with black women facing evictions. Cobb County Magistrate Court is the court that oversees evictions. Now, if Cobb County is supposed to be equally represented, why is that the eviction courts here in Cobb County are 70% black households? That is not equal. Now I'm here begging, I'm pleading for assistance to help our working families, because this week the court systems are opening back up to accept evictions filed by landlords. The landlords are saying that they have to file evictions. Well, of course you can file evictions when the rent is $1,000 a month and the wages for women, especially black women, it's about $12 an hour. So if a person works 40 hours a week, that averages out to be about $1,500 a month. Minus $1,000 of rent, a family of three have to make it with $500 through the rest of the month. So if a person does not receive a housing subsidy or some type of continuous rental assistance, they will face eviction every 2 or 3 years. So why is there the urgency to file evictions on people who are still trying to grasp what is going on with this COVID crisis? They were already suffering before the crisis, trying to maintain bills. COVID cases are going to go up, so what is the urgency to kick people out? In August, we will have families that will utilize their home as their child's school. So not only will a child be homeless, but they will be without school as well. What is the urgency to kick people out? Women with children, black women out on the streets. Statistics show that African American women are hit hardest with evictions. What a year 2020 would be. We saw our black men being killed in the streets and black women going to be put out in the streets. As Matthew Desmond states, the author of the book Evicted, he stated that black men are faced with convictions and black women are faced with evictions. So in closing, please find funding for housing assistance beyond 2020. There needs to be a continuous plan to stabilize our families. Please ask the magistrate court to please set up a checklist before the final blue slip is signed to evict the family. On the checklist, make sure it's not for a missed court date. As in my case, when I was wrongly evicted in December 12, 2019, I never missed a court date. So please make sure that it's not for a missed court date before somebody's personal items is put out on the street. On the checklist, make sure that eviction has to take place. Make sure there's every effort to provide resources to the household. Make sure that if there's a child on a lease under the age of 18, to contact the school, work hard to find the resources. Let's show that we truly care about our community. Thank you.
Thank you, Monica.
Gregory George.
Good morning, and thank you for having me. I don't have a prepared statement. I didn't bring any data with me today. I could have, but I wanted to try to keep my responses genuine and humane as possible. I'm a 20-year resident of Cobb County. Been a homeowner for most of that residency. I've watched 5 children, 5 boys, graduate from Cobb County schools, 3 of them by birth and 2 by marriage. 1 graduated from McEachern, 2 from South Cobb, and 2 from Pebblebrook. I am a teacher in Cobb County. I've been a teacher for some 16 years, 13 of those going on 14 in Cobb County. I buried my mother 5 years ago. She was a resident in Cobb County at a senior citizen home. My oldest child, who graduated from McEachern, well, at least at that time while he was in school, was a severe asthmatic. I wanted to bring up those points to say this, is that as a teacher, I'm probably one of the few teachers who feels like I need to go back to be available for my students, but not under the conditions that have been proposed by Cobb County Schools. I mentioned my oldest child because if he were in school this year, I would have to make the decision of whether to send him to school to potentially catch a fatal disease and die, or keep him at home. If my mother was alive, as I've lived in Cobb County, I took care of my mother. Before she went to a nursing home, I would be faced with the decision as an employee on whether to quit my job so that I could take care of my mother. I wanted to make this personal because these are the situations that many of our citizens are facing. Make no mistake about it, we're in a war. Unfortunately, we're making this 2 wars. The obvious enemy is COVID, but we're making this so divisive among ourselves that we're creating a war between those of us who feel like everybody needs to go back to school and just tough it out, and those of us who feel like we shouldn't be going back to school at all, and then those of us who feel like we need to have a plan in between. I'm here to lobby for the plan in between. What's your part in that? You're the money men and women. Yesterday, our superintendent of Cobb County Schools asked for $8.1 million for CTLS. Whatever intentions he had for that $8.1 million as it pertains to CTLS, this is not the time for that. There's only one reason that there's $8.1 million available. That's because of the CARES Act. I assumed that the spirit of the CARES Act, the intent of it was to ensure that those funds would go to the county to help survive the crisis that we're in right now. However, I don't believe that when the presentation yesterday met that criteria. And the questions from you all to the superintendent, I think seconded that thought process. As a teacher, what I would like to see is I would like to have the district allow the commissioner to come back, allow the superintendent to come back and present another presentation for those funds. What would I like to see in those funds as somebody who's trying to be open and receptive of everybody's needs? I think that there should be consideration for PPE, obviously. I think there needs to be consideration for technology. I think the amount that he asked for won't service our community. I think there needs to be more funds allocated for it. I think this district should hold the school board accountable for being creative. That word was mentioned yesterday. So the school board needs to be creative and come back with a plan that understands that there will be hot spots in our county created by the plan that they have right now. Right now, there are schools that don't even have enough room to house their students. Clearly, you outlined the number of people who are on free and reduced lunch who don't have software. If we go to a virtual approach, those kids will be left out. If we go back to school, they'll be overcrowded and exposed. I just ask for consideration when you all take a look at the funding that can be allocated to the school board. I would ask you to force them to be more creative in their response and to have a thoughtful process to understand that this is a pandemic that affects everybody, and there are a lot of conflicting views, and that there needs to be some serious consideration and some serious planning when they come to you and ask for those funds. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Rosa Torres. You want to go after her? Yeah. Anna Clay.
Good morning. Again, my name is Anna Clay. I'm a teacher in the Cobb County School District, and I'm here today to speak as well about CARES Act funding. And I'm sure y'all are a little sick of hearing about the CARES Act this morning in the presentation from Cobb County School District yesterday. I would like to point out that one main reason that's been happening is because the forum is not available to have these discussions within the Cobb County School District. The school board has not had public comment available at its meetings since March 19th, and the executive cabinet's meetings are not open to the public. So there has not been a public forum or a chance for the public to speak, as there has been in Marietta City Schools. So I would ask that you would postpone this vote, ask for a reproposal, and when it is reproposed, I would also ask that you ask questions to see what level of public comment was made in the development of the next proposal. I would ask that you make sure that whoever's making the proposal has taken into account public feedback during that time. CTLS as a system has a lot of promise, but it is brand new. There are 4 different parts of the software, and only 2 portions were available last semester. The student and parent portion was not available last school year, so students and parents have not been using it until this month, basically. It is brand new, and as with any new technology, there are likely to be issues. I don't think that now is the time for $8.1 million of coronavirus relief money to be spent on untested systems. Other priorities that I think the school should have, my colleagues have spoken today about other priorities. I'd like to speak primarily about personnel, because some schools have only 1 school nurse for over 2,000 students. And when those nurses are absent, the absences are often left uncovered. That is unacceptable in the time of a pandemic. So I would ask that the county provide additional school nurses, even if they're not RNs, just so that there is not 0 medical staff at a school during a pandemic. Bus drivers are largely a high-risk group, and social distancing is not possible on buses. Additional vehicles and transportation staff should be secured to prevent an interruption in transportation services when bus drivers inevitably become ill. Substitutes are already difficult to find, and this problem will become worse during the pandemic. The district should increase substitute pay well above the current rate of $89 per day and remove the restrictions which currently limit substitutes to 15 days per month. Schools will require additional custodial staff to clean and sanitize, especially when you consider that many schools struggle to keep soap and paper towel dispensers filled on a normal non-pandemic school day. We cannot place this additional cleaning upon teachers. I'd also like to address student mental health, which I do not feel has been appropriately addressed, especially for students who choose a virtual or remote learning option. I believe it's important that the county have systems in place to reach out to these students, have regular wellness checks, and trusted adults for them to reach out to, even if they're learning from home. but as well as those students who continue to come into the school building. Additionally, and this is not personnel, but some schools are already overcrowded so that teachers float into each other's classrooms during planning periods. This is not acceptable during a pandemic when that opens the door to cross-contamination. So the county should, I believe, provide trailers to these schools so that each teacher can have a dedicated classroom space, so that if that teacher is exposed or tests positive, that they only have to shut down one classroom. Although that may end up being futile because at the high school level, students change classrooms constantly. So it is only a matter of time before entire schools end up being shut down. So overall, CTLS is a system that I understand why the county is asking for money for in the timeline of these next few school years. I understand that this is the 21st century and digital learning platforms are important in the 21st century. I understand that. But this is not the time to be using coronavirus relief money on an untested system when, as has been stated previously, 41% of the school district is free and reduced lunch, does not have access to these systems. So I would ask that this proposal be rejected at this time and that a re-proposal be submitted with intensive public comment, and that the commissioners ask what public comment was taken into account in drafting this new updated proposal. Thank you.
Thank you.
Rosa Torres.
Morning. My name is Rosa Torres, and we moved to the beautiful state of Georgia about 13 years ago from New Jersey with our 3 children. And I'll be honest to say that my expectations were that when we come here, we will find people wearing overalls, straw hats, and chewing tobacco on the front porch. I'm glad to say that I absolutely loved it. When we came here, the atmosphere, the Southern charm was something we never experienced before. So we stayed. You are probably wondering what brings me here today. I saw the video of Mr. Floyd being murdered by the police officers in Minneapolis. Horrific, absolutely horrific. Never should it have happened. All Americans were feeling the same way. The community went out and protested police brutality, as we all should. It is our First Amendment right to peacefully assemble and protest, make our voices be heard. But the movement was hijacked by radicals that hate peace. They are terrorizing communities and looking to defund, abolish, dismantle the police department. I have always enjoyed the peace of this community, and now our peace and safety are challenged by the people who obviously have no idea how the world works. They have ideals, they are angry and misguided. Nowadays, we have so many incentives to become a criminal. I can see how tempted that could be. Protest with violence, no punishment. Deface the statues and monuments, no punishment. Scream the N-word to Black police officers, wanting to shame them, no punishment. Actually celebrate it. Burn the American flag, stepped on it, spit on it, no punishment. On the 4th of July, people say they hated America, and they were ashamed of it and what it stands for. I always looked at police officers as people who were honoring a call, who serve and protect the community, people that will jump into a very dangerous situation to help and protect those in need. They are underpaid, overworked, true American heroes. That is one of the reasons they have a special place in my heart, and they are always in my prayers. Today I see the hatred that has been developed in the last 6 to 8 weeks towards them, We must help them regain the good image they had. If you have to give them more training, better equipment, let's do that. I believe that respect can not only be given, it also has to be earned. Let's do more activities with police to point out the good they do. It is your job to show the community the vast majority are good, hardworking, and they hate to be portrayed as bad cops. They hate that the people they have sworn to protect think about them that way. If they can have something in life. It is their good name. We should help them keep that. They deserve that. Have you seen some of the videos of how these misguided young people are acting with police officers? Jumping on top of their vehicles, blocking the roads so their cars can't get through, calling them names, spitting at them, throwing frozen bottled waters at them. And if they try to get away and someone gets hurt, they are the ones that get in trouble. I feel like we are in a time that either we stand up to the bullies or we are doomed. The America that we all love and know, it will be gone in no time. Defund, they say. Abolish, they say. Dismantle, they say. I say they don't know what they're asking for. Who will defend the households of those that are in need? Who will jump to save the abused child, the single mother, the abused woman, or the elderly? Who will go to the school shooting? We know if the perimeter is not cleared, the EMTs cannot go to help those that need medical attention. The police are here to protect and serve the community. So I ask the following questions. Who will protect them? Who will stand for them as they protect us? I tell you who you are. On August 13, 2019, you say, Chairman Mike's voice this year was all about increased compensation for public safety, and this budget delivers that. We are going to put our money where our mouth is, and everyone in this county who believes public safety
Torres,
is our number.
I'm sorry.
I'm done?
Yes, ma'am.
Can I say one more thing?
It's up to the chairman.
10
Please?
seconds. 10
Thank you. I think I wrote too much, sorry. I do want to talk about racism, and racism is a sin in the heart. No law will change that. Nothing you can do will change that, and it has to be addressed as a sin, and you have to surrender it to God. God created one race, only one, the human race. We all bleed red, and when the lights are out, we are all black. God bless you. Thank you.
Thank you so much, ma'am.
Chairman, that concludes those people that sign up for public comment.
Thank you. All right. So now we're going to get into consent agenda. And I make a motion that we approve the consent agenda as amended and revised.
Mr. Chairman, like I mentioned yesterday, absent the requested statements about the grant positions, I can't support items 6 and 7.
Okay.
So I ask the clerk to show my vote for the agenda, the consent agenda to show no vote on number 6 and 7.
Yeah. And likewise for me. Let's have a second first, and then we'll have the second. Okay, now we're good. Go ahead. Commissioner Burrow, you had a point? We've had a second, yeah.
Being withdrawn, did we announce that?
Thank you for bringing that. I appreciate that.
Because that's on consent. isn't it?
Yes, it is. Thank you very much. I appreciate it. There was, in the consent agenda today, what number was that?
20. Number 20.
20, thank you.
Number 20.
There was a proposal to split precinct in Marietta into two separate precincts. The problem is that one of the new locations may not be able to receive the new precinct. And so I believe that would only confuse the voters, that if we put this precinct out here, if we put this consent out here right now, then they had to come back in 2 weeks to revise it. So I've heard very clearly from many quarters that we have to make sure that these voting issues are very clearly defined. This one I don't believe is ready for prime time yet until the new location comes back and affirms that it is prepared to accept a new precinct. So I've been asked to withdraw that consent agenda until the July 28th meeting. So it will not be voted on today. Okay, any other comments on the consent agenda?
Yes, I do not support number 6 or 7 either.
for reasons stated yesterday.
Okay, then it does not pass.
Okay. And then also, I do not support number 18,
Okay.
as this will increase future budgets and responsibilities of Cobb County to fund this bus service.
Okay.
And then also on number 25, we never had anything come back to the board stating what future impacts on the budget this was going to have. This is the spending of the CARES money, buying all kinds of things, and not looking at what our O&M in the future is going to be.
But I saw a revision last night on my email.
It increased the spending because they made the couple adjustments
Right.
that I had found mathematically erred. But I still did not see anything analysis-wise from the county stating what our O&M increases would be in future budgets.
All right, so who'd like to address that?
What number?
25.
I can address that, sir,
Sure.
if you would like me to. We were just asked yesterday to consider M&O in each of the asks, and we're going to do that. But we did not have time to scrub that entire list and provide M&O in such a short period of time. I can assure you, though, that whatever M&O is associated with the ask, we will make sure that the M&O is there. We have a limited amount of time to obligate and expend these funds, and your department heads have come to you asking you for these things for multiple reasons, so that we will be prepared for what comes next. As your county manager, I ask you to support this item because this is CARES Act funding that they have identified as needs. So I respect the board's decision on it, but if M&O is what you ask for, I ask that you give us time to provide that to you, but we will only ask for that on yesterday.
Okay, but your objections noted, and will be recorded in the minutes of the meeting.
Chairman, may I encourage us to pull the items off that we are discussing off consent? I particularly want to discuss items 6 and 7 before they're voted down.
Sure.
And give those persons who are here the ability to speak to that. And if it's leaning towards the agenda item for the CARES funding to not be supported, I at least think we should have the benefit of discussing it outside of consent.
Well, I think what we can do is we can withdraw 6 and 7 and ask them to come back for the 28 July meeting. Will that work with you?
I think we should at least
Oh, okay. So
confer with those who are here from
So,
the DA's office and juvenile court.
So for the juvenile court member, are they here in the audience today?
Adults.
Okay, how about from the DA's office?
Okay. Then I'll ask that we pull, yes, and
All right,
consider.
so we'll go ahead and pull that until July 28th, okay?
Yeah, I think that's
Does that work
fair.
for you? All right, so we'll withdraw 6 and 7 until July 28th.
In reading those are pretty significant matters that they're addressing. One dealing with child abuse, another
Right.
one dealing with persons who are in health and human services. I think we should be mindful about the impact.
Well, the issue is that we did not want to have a backdoor at adding people to the county staff unless it could be covered within their budgets.
Understood.
So, but we can have a full more discussion about that later. So I'm
Thank
fine
you.
with that. Okay, so 6 and 7 withdrawn until the July 28th meeting. 25, Commissioner Gamble's objections noted. Any other discussion on the consent items?
Is 25 staying on consent?
Yes.
Okay.
You haven't scrolled some.
And we're going to be doing that now, yeah. Did you do all of them already? Oh, okay, there you go. Here. I was distracted. My tie was too tight. All right, with that, I call a question. All in favor, raise your hand.
As modified? or moved to
That's
consent?
right, amended as modified and revised. Okay, passes 5-0. Thank you very much. All right. Let's go on to number 45. Okay, and I now make a motion to adopt a resolution imposing a special purpose local option sales tax to raise an estimated $750 million for the purposes of unincorporated county and municipal improvements, including facilities, technology, public services, public safety, and transportation and other purposes. Do I have a second?
Second, and just, I mean, I want to make sure that the public understands, when you say adopt a resolution imposing, that is contingent upon the approval of the referendum.
That's correct.
Right.
That's correct. There has to be a referendum on this in November. Yeah.
This is the language attached to the file.
Yeah, we're just, the resolution is, we're voting on the resolution. Any other questions? Okay, call the question. All in favor, please raise your hand. Passes 5-0. If it's okay with the board, Commissioner Gambrell has a family matter that she may have to leave a bit early, and I believe 46 and 65 will have extensive discussions. So in order to make sure that Commissioner Gambrell's point has an opportunity to address all the questions she has, I'd like to bring the Marietta School proposal first, and then address the Cobb County one second, all right? Is that okay with everybody? So with that, if I could add Mr. The Superintendent, Dr. Grant Rivera, to come to the podium, please.
You're better if I take that.
And let me make the motion first, and then we'll have the discussion. I make a motion that the Board of Commissioners approve emergency funding for Marietta City Schools in order to provide a safe environment for in-person learning, as well as expanded digital learning to support those families who may choose not to send their children back to school as a result of COVID-19 pandemic, to authorize the corresponding budget transactions, and to authorize the chairman to execute the intergovernmental agreement and any of the necessary documents for said purpose. Do I have a second? All right, second. I'm sorry?
Can you state the total amount?
Yes, it's $2,964,024. All right, so now we have a motion and a second, and what I'd like to do now is open the floor to discussion. But first, do you have any comments that you want to add on from yesterday, Dr. Rivera?
I want to acknowledge, once again, I want to thank, sir, you and the other commissioners for allowing this time, and certainly your investment in education, your commitment to this community. I acknowledge that the complexity of all of this as we work through it, not only understanding the depth of this request, but also the complexity of how it shifts and changes by the day. I did receive some follow-up questions yesterday, and quite candidly, in the spirit of full transparency, so that way I felt like I understood it, as well as I hope to convey that to you. We very quickly pulled some things together, and I made an attempt to answer questions that were shared with me. Admittedly, this was done when I got it late last night. I had a 4-year-old in my lap this morning eating pancakes, so I tried to keep the syrup off your copies. But I want you to know that I am certainly willing, and as I attempted to do in writing, acknowledge the questions and certainly willing to walk through to whatever degree you may want, any and all of the details that give you peace of mind and confidence in how we would be stewards of your money.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Rivera. So I'll start with Commissioner Gambrell.
Mr. Chairman, since I was just handed this document, I have not had time to
Okay.
read it. So can we take a 10, 15-minute break so that
Sure.
we can all
Yeah,
have an
why don't-
opportunity? Or I suggest we pull this and consider it at our July 21st special called meeting, so that we all have a better way to prepare.
Their school district starts on August 4th, so I think that, the timeline is already critical.
I will weigh in, and Commissioner Gambrell, I will tell you that with the fastest turnaround time we could, I wanted to put things in writing. Ultimately, I want you to have the same peace of mind that I do in how we would execute this money, and I want you to know that, especially given this is a reimbursable grant, to give you whatever time you want to have peace of mind so you are accountable both to your constituents and feel comfortable with our recommendations. Commissioner, I will say that we are going to go forward in however we need to go forward as things continue to shift and move. And I, as I feel an ambassador of the school district, as someone accountable to each of you, am willing to take whatever time you need to not only understand this document, but also ask follow-up questions. So I want you to know that I'm on your timeline humbly as I stand before you, and there's no sense of urgency as long as you have peace of mind.
That's appreciated.
Okay.
I know this is a bit unconventional, but to be honest with you, I'd rather be transparent in the same way that I feel you and our community deserves. So I am willing to defer to whatever timeline gives you the greatest peace of mind, because I acknowledge that I didn't have time to provide this earlier.
Okay, so could I clone you bring you back in other forms for people who come before this board.
So I defer to whatever timeline gives you the greatest peace of mind to know that I'll be here whenever you ask me.
Commissioner
to come back.
Cupid, yes.
That's appreciated. I would just ask that we defer it to the evening meeting, not to.
Right.
Yes, a special meeting.
The one on July 28th?
Yes.
Okay.
Just.
I think that might be a little bit too long a wait, or cutting it too close going to the 28th. We have a specially called meeting on the 21st. I think there's only two agenda items. One is the public hearing on the budget, the budget and the millage, which we saw there was, one person here. And then the only other thing on that agenda is the changing of the MOU and the list. So I think it would be better with everything that's moving on to the agenda on the 28th to hear it on the night of the 21st.
Yes, my only concern is that the public is typically present for the scheduled meetings. And this is not just about us making a decision, but public participation is also requested during these meetings. Again, if we're not going to consider it today, I know a request was made for 10 or 15 minutes to review it. If that's not adequate, I would just ask that we keep this to a regularly scheduled Board of Commissioners meeting.
But as far as the public comment, I know I received a bunch of emails last night, and not one of them was on the City of Marietta Schools proposal. I'm not sure, I guess, can I ask Dr. Rivera a question?
Sure.
Did you take public comment from your school district as far as your plans that you put before us for this CARES funding?
Yes, ma'am. There have been two waves, if you will, two phases. The first were town halls by grade level that we conducted in late May and early June. And then most recently, as in last week, where we held a 1 hour, again, town hall for families to submit questions in advance for every single school, as well as all school-based staff. And quite candidly, I have another one today with non-school-based staff. And we also shared, we gave an opportunity for input from each of the councils, our advisory councils. So there's been extensive input relative to how we are approaching reopening.
So, Mr. Chairman, with that, I don't think, from hearing what Mr. Rivera said, they've already had public comment, so I'm not sure how much public comment would be required in front of our board. It would be just a matter of considering his proposal and voting.
Well, I'll be candid with you, Commissioner. On this particular agenda item, you're the ones that had the most concerns, okay? So, quite honestly, you're driving the train. I mean, until your concerns are addressed and you're comfortable with them, you know, he's offered to give you a little bit more time. He says if we want to wait till the end of the month, he's fine with that. So I'll just, Commissioner Burrow.
After the presentation yesterday, we talked, because I had a few questions as well, which you answered, and I'm comfortable with it, so I'd prefer to move forward.
Okay, so again, Commissioner Burrow, Commissioner Gamble.
I would like to hold it and either take a 15-minute recess or hold it until the 21st, and it might be best if we held it to the 21st.
All right, well, let's split the baby, okay? Let's hold it, and we'll do it on the 20th.
Yeah, I don't mind holding it, but I think out of protocol for the public, for us to be voting on days that are not Board of Commissioners meeting days is not a good practice. I think we take time and vote on it today when you do know that this is formally on our Board of Commissioners meeting agenda, or we put it back on another BOC agenda. This is a separate process from the school board having public comment. People are not appealing to the superintendents for this agenda item. They're appealing to their commissioners. So if there's other persons in the public that want to be able to ask questions, they can. I think it's an error to believe that only those who are part of the school system have the ability to question how we spend COVID dollars. Any citizen of the county should be able to feel as if they can come back before us and make questions as to how we're spending those dollars. So even though I do appreciate the steps that you've taken to engage the public, which is assuring for me to know how well vetted your proposal is, I either think we take time to respond to this today or we wait. Now, another thing is we're pulling it for one commissioner. I think there could be consensus to vote on this today from the conversations that I've heard. Sure. So I think out of respect for Commissioner Gambrill out of respect for the timeliness that has been discussed, I don't see what's wrong with us taking 10 minutes as opposed to having to come back on a non-BOC day, BOC meeting day to have this discussed, and we can move this forward.
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion that we hold this item until the 21st.
Okay, I'll second that for discussion purposes, all right?
Chairman, if I may, right now, the meeting on the 21st is not, it's a special called meeting
Right.
so that it's just for you to hear public comment. If you're going to take up matters which you vote on, there needs to be another notice that would be sent out. We have to provide an agenda. We have to figure out what that is. So it's going to be an additional meeting
Right.
that has not been noticed so far
Right.
to the public. Make sure you understand.
What's the time frame on notice?
Um,
Do we have to do a 30-day notice?
No.
Five days before.
Mr.
With
Chairman,
an
on that-
agenda, which we don't have at this point in time. So we'd have to figure out, the board would have to decide on what the agenda would be.
Mr. Chairman, I don't think 10 minutes is enough time. Mr. Rivera did a lot of work between the pancakes and didn't get syrup on it. Thank you. But there's a lot of stuff here. We can't read this in 10 minutes. So it shouldn't be decided today.
Okay, other discussion?
Yes,
I'd like to,
Okay, go ahead, I'm sorry, I didn't see you. All right, go ahead.
as I said, I'd like to make a substitute motion to pull agenda number 69 and be heard at our July 28th meeting.
Okay, a second. So now we have a discussion about moving it to the July 28th meeting. All right, the only thing I'm going to say is I really appreciate your effort to work with the board. I got to say in all honesty, Dr. Rivera, no good deed goes unpunished. I thought that when reading the CARES guidance from the federal government by including the public schools in here to offer up funding for school districts, never did I realize it would cause this much controversy. But having been there, we're now in this position to have to make a decision on that. And I think what I'm hearing here, both from yesterday to last night and this morning, there's clearly a lot of interest on these issues to make sure that we appropriately obligate these funds. So to me, the driving measure has always been that in the end, we have to be confident within ourselves that we are appropriately using government money regardless of who's it's ours or the federal governments or the states. So I appreciate your offer to let us consider this for a little bit longer. I don't want to give you any preconceived notion of how we're going to vote in 2 weeks. That would not be fair to the board. But in the case here, I reluctantly support the motion to hold this until the July 28th meeting. So, any other discussion?
Actually, I said, when in my motion, I said agenda number 69, because I thought this had been assigned
It's
69.
60
It's actually 65
65,
for the
right,
clerk
yes.
to know.
Right. So any other discussion on the motion, on the motion to hold this agenda item to July 28th? With that, I'll call the question. All in favor, please raise your hand. It's 3, all opposed? 2, so it passes 3-2. So Dr. Rivera, we'll see you in 2 weeks, and thank you for your time and your patience and your understanding.
Thank you.
All right, now let's go on to number 46. And make a motion to approve emergency funding for the Cobb County School District in order to provide increased capacity for students to be served in a distance learning environment necessary due to the COVID-19 pandemic, to authorize the chairman to execute the intergovernmental agreement and any other documents for the said purpose. Okay, so we have a second. I'll now open the floor for discussion.
Mr. Chairman, I got questions for Superintendent.
Sure.
First off, let me just kind of clarify, because I heard some people talk about the questions they thought I asked yesterday. My comments yesterday about PPE versus this program were simply a statement that I thought that it would have had less discussion and opposition if it had been for PPE. This body is separate from the school board. The superintendent answers to the school board, not this body. Our mission here is to decide up or down whether or not to approve the request coming from the superintendent. I do not believe that it's our role to tell the superintendent how to run the schools. If this is what he wants to bring forward to this board, then we have to decide on that. And so my comment yesterday was just comments, but in the interest of, I think we had one open-ended question yesterday, Mr. Ragsdale, was that we talked about, you said that there were multi-millions of dollars in your budget for PPE and things like that, and you didn't have them off the top of your head. I have a feeling that between yesterday and today, you now have them on the top of your head. So if you could just tell us a little bit about what you have in your budget and why you're asking for this today instead of, the PPE and stuff that we heard from some of the speakers.
Appreciate the opportunity, Commissioner Ott, and the opportunity to come back before you. Quite honestly, the reason was kind of what I alluded to yesterday. So let me first answer your question. No, I still don't, off the top of my head, have that list to provide because we have not presented the tentative budget to the Board of Education, which will happen this Thursday. So it'd be highly inappropriate to discuss contents of that budget prior to the board receiving that budget. So that being said, when we first submitted the proposal to the commissioners for the CARES Act funds, it was quite a different time out from the budget. We were looking at 14% budget cut that was coming down that we had heard. Still, we're receiving a 10% budget cut. What we had always planned for is to have in our budget some amount of money, whatever we could put aside for COVID-related expenses. And those could be anything. That's why I said yesterday it was more appropriate for us to come to the Board of Commissioners with a finite proposal that this is exactly the box that we're asking for funding. It's unfortunate that people sometimes misperceive things based on rumor and speculation. I can tell you that the proposal that you have in front of you is a direct result of the pandemic. Quite honestly, the last 6 weeks of school, as we discussed yesterday, some things went awesome, remote learning. Should we have to go into an all remote learning environment? And we don't know when, if that will happen. We've already seen some of the big six, as we refer to the districts of the metro area. Half of those have already declared that they're going total virtual at the start of the school year. That being said, we've not made that decision. We're obviously taking the data into consideration, the data being the cases. And also, with the DOE guidance was given to all the school districts about low spread, medium to moderate spread, and high spread. And their guidance varies based on what that spread level is, which is determined by the DPH and the local Cobb Douglas, in our situation, Board of Health, or the health director rather. So it was just more appropriate for us to give you a proposal that had a finite amount of funding for that was directly related to the pandemic response. And some questions came yesterday about, have we been working on the CTLS Learn portion? And the answer is yes. We're just going to hit a wall, and that wall is no more funding is available. Can we stand it up? Yes, we can stand it up. As you see in the proposal, the majority of the funds go to content, and that is purchased from multiple vendors, just as we purchase content now. That content will be extremely valuable and necessary for us to have a robust online learning system for K-12. Again, right now the portal is open, and we did make sure that the portal has those options that we can gather that information about devices, Commissioner Keeper, that you made mention of yesterday, and we have made those preparations. We have literally thousands of devices that we have that we're going to be able to provide access to. That will also be a yet to be determined number. When that number is determined, those devices will be utilized. The PPE funding, which is what I'm referring to in the general fund, PPE is just a portion of that. There could be other purchases that are necessary to address the environment for both employees and students, assuming that the number of students in face-to-face
is substantial, which we think it is and will be. That being said, there's still the possibility that, based on the data, we will not be able to start school. I'm not saying that that decision has been made, which I had a superintendent call me yesterday and say, I need you to clarify a rumor. I've heard that you guys are going 100% digital. And I said, that's a rumor. That decision has not been made. Obviously, there's been districts that have made that decision already. So as far as the appropriateness, it's absolutely appropriate in the regard that it's a direct result of the pandemic. So that's why we brought this proposal to you. Quite honestly, the amount of money could exceed greatly $8 million for responses or purchases necessary due to COVID when we get into school. That's what we just don't know, and that's why I made the comment yesterday. I didn't feel comfortable coming to you and saying, hey, we need this amount of money now, but maybe we need to come back in a month or 6 weeks or 9 weeks or in January and say we need some more. That's just not how you're set up to govern the distribution of the CARES Act money. Our budget and our board is set up for that. When we have additional expenditures that exceed my spending authority, I go back to the Board of Education and they vote it up or down after we make the proposal to them. So, long way to answer your question, but that's what surrounded the making of the decision to present you with the proposal.
Okay, thank you. That's all I have.
Other questions from the board? Commissioner Burrow.
What we have before us is a request for $8.1 million for technology to get you to the point where you can start school or virtually or in the classroom due to the pandemic, which is CARES Act money, which is what we're here for. I agree with Commissioner Ott that how you run your school board or how the school board runs their meetings is not under our jurisdiction. And whether you choose to have public comment or not is not up to us. We do allow it here, and but I'm sure you have presented this to your board as far as, or made them aware of what you're doing here. So I prefer to move forward with this one as well.
Okay. Other commissioner. Commissioner Cupid, yes.
I still have concerns that linger from yesterday and even conversations with staff prior.
I'm sorry.
I still have concerns that linger from yesterday and from questions that I had with your staff prior to even yesterday. And I have some perhaps even more overarching concerns than the substance of what I discussed yesterday and will discuss later. I perceive your superintendent role is beholden to the school board, similar to how our county manager is beholden to the Board of Commissioners. So it concerns me when I have school board members say that they learned more about your proposal by watching our meeting yesterday than they had opportunity to talk amongst themselves and with you formally at a school board meeting. I have concerns about that structurally because I want to give my peers who are elected officials in the BOE the same amount of deference, concern and care that I would like my peers to give me. And I feel that I will be putting my peers in a very uncomfortable situation knowing that they have not had the opportunity to flesh this out any more than we have as a Board of Commissioners. And we will be making extremely significant decisions that impact their sphere of interest without allowing them the ability to flesh this out formally. I have a problem with that.
Well, first of all, that's an inaccurate statement. We have had numerous presentations for numerous years on CTLS. I made the Board of Education aware before I sent the proposal to the Board of Commissioners. And then we have had a formal presentation, as a matter of fact, at the request of a board member at the last board meeting. So CTLS as a platform has been literally in production for years. I don't have the total amount of time
I'm going to
in
interrupt
front
you.
of me.
Excuse me, I'm going to interrupt you right there because now I'm getting very frustrated. Because for somebody to say that they've discussed a subject matter for years doesn't necessarily mean that they've received authorization to go appeal for somebody to make a formal decision on that. And again, as a member of this body, I feel that's entirely inappropriate. I will give you an example. We have been discussing BRT in the county. It has never been approved on an agenda. So to think our county manager should go shop around to get funding for something which has been discussed in this county for years because they brought it to our attention and gave us a presentation, have not received formal authorization, and you think that's okay and that passes muster, it does not. I find that completely to be disrespectful of my peers. And if that's the case, I should not have multiple people from your board contacting me, telling me these concerns. I have a problem with that. I think this is premature for us to vote on. You're right. We don't run the school system, as Commissioner Ott said, and Commissioner Burrow said. But what we do have is a finite supply of CARES funding. We have cities that have been requesting for us to provide funding so that they can care for their residents. That request has not gone responded to. We have had nonprofits that serve vulnerable communities in this county that have sent us questions about how they're going to receive funding, and that has not been responded to. We had a resident here speak to evictions where we'll have residents out on the street who have inability to pay rent, to pay mortgage. They're competing for the same dollars that you're coming to me, and I can still not find adequate basis as to why I should move forward. And I find the way that it's being presented not only disrespectful to my peers on the BOE, I find it highly challenging for people who have students in the school system. And for one thing, I can't understand, I'm going to back up to a conversation yesterday. We are spending CARES dollars to respond to a health pandemic. We have finite dollars to spend CARES money in response to a health pandemic. But yet yesterday, I'm limited in even asking you questions about what's being done with that. And I'm asking you that because we have finite dollars to respond to a health pandemic that's getting worse and worse every day. I do not think it's fair for us to deny supporting the school system. We are partners. As the school goes, the county goes. As the county goes, the school goes. But what I need to support any measure coming before us is to know comprehensively what is the prioritization of the school's response to the pandemic for us to know that this should rise to the top. That's one thing. I've heard questions. I've even had teachers emailing me last night questioning the use of the platform that you're asking for funding in. There's so many holes in this. I cannot understand. And as a commissioner, I'm telling you, I cannot support anything that my peers on the BOE have not authorized out of order of respect, and because this is not my space, that's their space. So to me, I'm looking to have some guidance from them. And then as a commissioner, I'm not on the Board of Education, but these are citizens of Cobb County, and I still serve on their behalf. And a majority of them have students who are in school. So right, I'm not a teacher, I'm not a Board of Education member, but I am an elected official that serves on their behalf. And a lot of them are hurting right now, trying to figure out how they're going to work, put food on the table, and make sure their kids get educated. this is a constant pain and a stress for so many households right now in Cobb County. This is a stress of my household, to be honest. I cannot tell you the burden of what it's like trying to maintain a home of 2 working parents having kids who need to be educated, and we have the means. I can only imagine what it's like for the stress of not just parents of school students, of Cobb County citizens with this pandemic. I'm not trying to go here with you. I'm trying to be a partner with you in the way that we're asking questions, but in the way you're answering them, I almost feel like my intelligence is being undermined. And I feel like the concerns of the community are being undermined. And I don't think it's fair. And I think we should expect more. And to me, what I'm willing to do today is give you more time. You have people asking for us to provide additional weeks for you to come back with a plan. I've heard a digital plan, a PPE plan, a screening plan, varied aspects of response to this pandemic are being requested of you. And this from members of the audience who spoke here today, and that's being requested of me too.
Any other comments from the board? Okay, before I call a question, I just want to make a couple points here. First of all, I appreciate all the emails that I received last night and the public comment this morning. I think if this pandemic has done one thing, not many things, it has turned our lives upside down in a way that we all day to day try to figure out what's best for the communities that we serve. And a number of weeks ago, when I originally asked the board to approve the categories for funds that would be eligible for revenue under the CARES legislation, one of them was the schools. And the reason that I asked it to be included in that list was that there's a guidance that we've been given by the federal government that includes the criteria by which we can consider the use of CARES funding. And one of them was expenses to facilitate distance learning, including technological improvements in connection with school closings to enable compliance with COVID-19 precautions. And I think, to me, that was another example of we are being asked by this board. The federal government is asking this board to do things that we normally don't have any jurisdiction over. And the school isn't the only one. The public health is another one. We've been asking the federal government, by the $132 million that they gave us, is asking us to reach out into areas that we normally don't cross the line out because that's not our jurisdiction. But we accepted the funds, and by accepting the funds, we accept the responsibility for dispersing them. So in the case of this request here, the proposed CTLS clearly, I believe, meets the criteria established by the federal government. The question, of course, is questions raised very clearly by Commissioners Ott and Cupid and Gamble yesterday. But here's where I come from. I'm not a school teacher. I'm not a superintendent, never been one. Don't pretend to be one. And we're being asked to take the word of the superintendent of the school system that this is something that he believes is important to the school system that he serves. And I think one of the things that has made Cobb County one of the great places to live is that we have a great relationship with so many different entities in this county. It can be the municipalities, it can be CIDs, it can be the school system. And I think trust is an important element of that. And we honor that trust by taking the word of those who come before us that what they're asking for is a legitimate and reasonable request. And the nature of this board is to take a look at that request and to see if it meets that standard. So I acknowledge all the issues that were brought up by the commissioner, very passionately, eloquently by Commissioner Cupid, and also by Commissioner Ott. But here's the real issue in my eyes. The state government reduced funding to education by over $900 million. Is that correct, Superintendent Ragsdale?
Yes, sir.
And I believe your fair share of that cut will be around $60 million.
62 million. Yes,
$62 million. There's no way this board can address those needs related to COVID-19 if we wanted to.
Correct.
And still also address the other issues that have been thrown in our lap, not just the public health, but now in 2 weeks, we're going to address the city issues because the governor's asked us to reallocate some of that $113 million to the cities, and we're bringing forward that to the board in 2 weeks. So I feel like the guy that won the lottery, I have all kinds of new friends who are asking for it. But the good news is that they're good friends, and they've served their county honorably and trustfully, and in a way that reflects that the children of this county are our future. And that $8.1 million could go to the other items you're talking about, PPE or sanitation or hotspots. It wouldn't matter. There's just simply so many requests out there, we can't simply meet all of them. So the bottom line here is do I believe your request meets the criteria that's been provided us by the federal government? The answer is yes, it does. Do I believe that your request is something that reflects the overall intention of the school board and the system that you serve? I believe it's yes. So I think if there's one message that I think that we would like you to take back to the school board, because we've done a very good job about not interfering or involving ourselves in the school board, is that we would encourage the kind of interaction you're seeing here, which can be very hot and heavy, passionate, but that's what comes with the territory. But in the end, because we know how people feel about that and we get the input from the public, we have a pretty good sense of when we vote on something like this, that we have what I call a fully informed decision, but we own the vote. So with that, I'm going to support your request, while also acknowledging the concerns of those who presented what I thought some very reasonable issues that have to be addressed by the school board. And I think you know what those are, and we'd ask you to take those back to the school board.
Sure.
Okay. So with that, any other questions or comments from the school board? Commissioner Cupid, yes. Sure.
The issues of there being a digital divide are still very real issues. And again, I'm hearing from inside the schools that the 87% number does not correspond with the actual experience of teachers who have students who are in certain pockets of this community. I'm also hearing from a number of teachers where you provided that CTLS have been used over the past few months who said it has not. So there are holes in what I'm hearing about this proposal. But if this were to move forward, I'm putting it out there for public consumption, and I'm putting it out there because I have very high expectation for one of the largest school systems in Cobb and the state of Georgia to ensure that its low to moderate income students are not being left behind by this system. If Fulton County can provide access to all of their students, to have laptops, to be able to continue their education, I expect the same thing in Cobb County. We can do that. I expect for us to say we don't just have thousands of laptops over here where they're needed, and there are people in need over there who aren't getting it. I expect there to be some way that we are making sure that those who continue to be under-resourced in this county, those who continue to live in areas where the academic achievement is not meeting the level of academic achievement expected of Cobb County schools, I expect for those communities to be addressed, because as a district commissioner for those areas, I do not want them to continue to fall further behind. But I also recognize it's not just District 4. There are low to moderate income students throughout the county, and there are students who may have access to technology but may have multiple students in a home and still may have difficulty. I am asking you, I am pleading with you, do not let these students fall further behind if this system were to move forward. Please do not. On behalf of citizens in Cobb County, I am pleading with you for you to provide a robust plan for how you're going to keep schools and your teachers healthy. I am very concerned when those students go home, even if the students are okay, they may be putting the larger population at risk. I'm very concerned about that. So even though this is not part of this discussion, please know that this is something that comparable to what was provided from the city of Marietta to give their plan for what they desire. I'm still looking for that. And it's very clear that the parents of Cobb County schools are looking for that. This is what I expect as a partner by being on the Board of Commissioners, as we give very limited resources for this.
Okay, I'm going to call a question now, Commissioner Gamble. So thank you very much, Commissioner Cupid, and I echo those sentiments. With that, I'll call a question. All in favor, please raise your hand. All opposed? So it passes 3-2 with Commissioner Gamble and Cupid in opposition. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you,
Commissioner.
Superintendent Ragsdale.
That was the move.
Sure, yeah, let's take a short break, okay?
I had a motion.
Chief Ryder.
All right, that's what I thought, yeah. All right. So I'm going to, this is, we're on number 47 now. I'm going to make a motion to approve a resolution authorizing temporary hazard pay for sworn certified fire and emergency services personnel, 56-hour personnel, response division, and property management and senior services personnel whose duties were substantially dedicated to mitigating and responding to the COVID-19 public health emergency during a portion of the county's limited operational services period in an amount of $500 per month for the months of April and May, or a total of, hold on a second here. Yeah, $1,000, right, yeah. We have a second, all right. Now I'll let you present.
Okay. So Chairman, you basically read the purpose of this agenda, and what we would like to do is just ask the board to consider allocating funds in the amount that you mentioned, $1,000 total for the months of May and June for those employees who were substantially mitigating COVID-19. April and May, sorry. Excuse me,
Okay.
April and May.
All right, so we have a motion and a second. Discussion from the board.
I just want to, 47 is the 3 departments. My microphone's on. Huh? Are for the 3 departments that we know are covered under the CARES Act directly.
Yes, ma'am.
And it's $1,062,000.
That is correct.
Thank you. I fully support this and the next one.
Thank you, ma'am.
Okay. Any other discussion? Seeing none, I'll call the question. All in favor, please raise your hand. Passes 4-0 with Commissioner Gamble in absence. Okay, number 48. I'm going to make the motion and then a second, then we'll have discussion, all right?
Okay.
I make a motion that the Board of Commissioners approve a resolution authorizing temporary hazard pay for those employees designated as essential and required in order to provide county services during a portion of Cobb County's limited operating services during the limited operating services period in an amount of $500 per month for the months of April and May, or a total of $1,000, and provided the employees are still employed with the county at the time of payment, declare this temporary hazard pay meets the terms of non-cumulative payment as provided in the Cobb County Government Employees Pension Plan and is excluded from planned compensation for purposes of pension benefits, authorize the corresponding budget transactions, and to authorize the chairman to execute any necessary documents for the said purpose. Have a second. All right.
Okay.
Please.
So, sir, this is an agenda item that complements the item that we just presented. This is our way of saying to those essential employees, non-key managerial, and those who could not otherwise telework but required by their department head to show up for work during said time, April and May, that the board recognizes their services in the same amount of $1,000 for those months.
Okay. Any other comments? Commissioner Burrow.
Yes, I'm glad that we could reach a resolution to include all the essential that had to report to work that were, we don't know if they're eligible or not, but we are gonna cover them out of the general fund and then ask for reimbursement through the CARES Act if we can get it. I'd like to say thank you to the board for trying to come up with a resolution with staff, you, Jackie, Randy, and finance to help us move this forward. Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you. And we also, on behalf of all of the employees, thank you for this consideration.
Any other comments? Commissioner Cupid.
This was the right thing to do. It has been, and I'm glad to see this finally move forward.
Thank you, Commissioner.
Any other comments? With that, I'll call the question. All in favor, please raise your hand. Passes 4-0 with Commissioner Gamble in absence. All right, we'll go on to number 50 now.
Excuse me, Chairman. The director would like to just make one
statement.
statement.
I just, as the Public Safety Director, I just want to say thank you for you as the board for recognizing those employees outside of public safety that were critical during this time for us to meet the needs of the citizens that we serve. And I just, you know, a lot of times, rightfully so, a lot of emphasis is put on public safety because many people think that that's one of the core foundational needs that we need to meet. But there are a lot of other employees in this county that really put themselves in harm's way during this time that are outside of public safety. And I just want to say thank you for recognizing that and supporting this pay for those employees in all of those other departments outside of public safety. So I just wanted to publicly acknowledge those employees who did continue to work, who were not allowed to stay home and work and come in every day. I just want to say thank you for that support, and thank you to those employees for continuing to do their job in these very stressful and difficult times. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, Chief. Okay. For those who, yesterday, we agreed to withdraw 49. We're not quite ready for prime time yet. All right, so that, we're on to transportation. I thought you were on vacation.
That was last week.
Oh, that was last week.
Yes, sir. Thank you. Yeah. So our first item for consideration is requesting that the Board of Commissioners determine that circumstances are such that it is necessary to proceed with condemnation proceedings by declaration of taking under OCGA 32-3-4, authorize the commencement of condemnation proceedings on 3 parcels on Kennesaw Mountain Pedestrian Improvements Project, adopt the resolutions and orders in form substantially similar to the attached and as approved by the County Attorney's Office, and authorize the chairman to execute the necessary documents.
So moved. Discussion? Call to question? Passes 4-0. Commissioner
sir.
Gamble in absence.
Thank you. Our next item is requesting that the Board of Commissioners authorize the sole source procurement of software licenses and support services from Environmental Systems Research Institute, Inc., in an amount not to exceed $22,000 for Geographic Information Systems Big Data. Authorize procurement of associated hardware for process under provisions of Georgia Department of Administrative Services in an amount not to exceed $8,463 for Geographic Information Systems Big Data. And then authorize procurement of required operating software from Dell in an amount not to exceed $642 for Geographic Information Systems Big Data, and then further authorize the corresponding budget transactions.
So moved. Discussion? Call the question? Passes 4-0. Commissioner Gamble in office is, Commissioner Gamble is in absence.
Thank you, sir. Our next item is requesting that the Board of Commissioners approve change order number 1 final to the contract with CMES, and a savings to the project in the amount of $149,421.82 for improvements on Favor Road and Windy Hill Road at Osborne High School.
Mr. Cupid?
Second.
Discussion? Call the question? Passes 4-0.
Okay, thank you, sir.
Commissioner Gamble is in his absence.
Okay, thank you. Our next item is requesting that the Board of Commissioners approve a contract with Glosson Enterprises LLC in an amount not to exceed $175,764.87 for Hero Place sidewalks.
Commissioner Burrow?
Motion to approve with pleasure.
Any discussion?
Sidewalk.
Call the question. Passes 4-0. Commissioner Gamble in absence.
Next one, too.
The sidewalk queen.
Yeah, well, me and Lisa. Lisa has as many as I do.
Thank you. Our next item is requesting that the Board of Commissioners approve a contract with Glosson Enterprises LLC in an amount not to exceed $307,850.45 for Kenjack Drive sidewalks.
Commissioner Burrow?
Motion to approve.
Second. Discussion? Call the question. Passes 4-0 with Commissioner Gamble in absence.
Okay, thank you, sir. Our next item is requesting that the Board of Commissioners approve an intergovernmental agreement with the City of Marietta in an amount not to exceed $129,633.11 for resurfacing of Light Circle.
Commissioner Burrow? Discussion?
I just want to comment that Drew did give me the percentage of the split with the city.
Okay, thank you.
So we're
ma'am.
good.
Yes,
Thank
ma'am.
you.
Thank you.
Any other comments? Call the question. Passes 4-0 with Commissioner Gamble in absence.
Okay, thank you, sir. Our next item is requesting that the Board of Commissioners approve change order number 1 final to resurfacing contract 2019-1 countywide major thoroughfares local maintenance improvement grant with Baldwin Paving Company, Inc., a savings to the project in the amount of $21.84 for resurfacing of county maintained streets.
So moved. Discussion? Call the question. Passes 4-0. Commissioner Gamble in absence.
Thank you, sir. Our next item is requesting that the Board of Commissioners approve the revised budget and current schedule for the 2016 Transportation Improvement Program funded primarily by the 2016 Special Purpose Local Option Sales Tax, or SPLOST, and authorize the corresponding budget transactions per the 2016 SPLOST Transportation Improvement Program budget and schedule.
So moved. Discussion? Sure, go ahead.
As we talked yesterday, there's actually no projects that have been removed.
No, sir.
Yeah, it's just a matter of kind of savings here and money not used there.
Yes,
So,
sir.
Okay, any other comments? Call the question. Passes 4-0 with Commissioner Gamble in absence.
Okay, thank you, sir. And our last item is requesting that the Board of Commissioners approve a contract with Accelera Construction LLC in an amount not to exceed $121,400 for drainage system repairs on Janet Lane.
Mr. Cupid. Discussion? Call the question. Passes 4-0, Commissioner Gamble in absence.
Okay, thank you, sir.
Thank you, Erica. Okay, on to parks.
Good morning.
Good morning, Jimmy.
Our first item this morning is for the board to approve a contract with Advanced Sports Group LLC in an amount not to exceed $890,777.87 to convert a multi-use athletic field to synthetic turf at Fuller's Park under the 2016 Park SPLOST program. Therefore, we ask the Board of Commissioners to approve the contract, authorize the corresponding budget transactions, and further authorize the chairman to execute the necessary documents.
Commissioner Ott.
thank you, Mr. Chairman. I just want to, we've had a lot of discussions about the county and schools, and this is one of those SPOST items that kind of was off in the background and nobody really saw. This is actually an agenda, comes from a SPOST item that is the county using county SPOST dollars to create fields that can be jointly used between the county and the school system.
Yes, sir.
So I'm happy to see this move forward. Motion to approve.
I'll second it. Any discussion? Call the question. Passes 4-0 with Commissioner Gamble in absence.
Our final item is for the board to approve a contract with Unity Construction Company Incorporated in an amount not to exceed $444,233 to replace the complete sanitary sewer system at the Larry Bell Complex under the 2016 SPLOST program. Therefore, we ask the Board of Commissioners to approve the contract, authorize the corresponding budget transactions, and further authorize the chairman to execute the documents.
Commissioner Burrow. I'll second it. Any discussion? Call the question. Passes 4-0 with Commissioner Gamble in absence.
Thank you.
Thank you, Jimmy. Information Services.
Good morning, Chairman, Commissioners, County Manager. Our item this morning is to request the Board of Commissioners approve a contract with Conference Technologies, Inc. to design, provide, and install audiovisual technology in 3 county courtrooms. This project is an eligible project under the 2016 SPLOST Support Services Technology Improvements Program X0020. An RFP for the design, hardware, purchase, and installation of courtroom audiovisual technology was advertised in the Marietta Daily Journal on January 24th, 31st, February 7th, February 14th, and February 21st. Proposals were received on February 27th, 2020, with 6 firms responding. The proposals were reviewed by a selection committee comprised of members from the District Attorney's Office, Information Services, Juvenile Court, Solicitor's Office, and State Court Administration. Conference Technologies, Inc. was selected based on proposed staffing, levels of experience, past performance, project approach, and cost. The total project cost is an amount not to exceed $256,009, which includes a 10% contingency for unexpected cost. We request the Board of Commissioners approve a contract with Conference Technologies, Inc. in an amount not to exceed $256,009 to design, provide, and install audiovisual technology in 3 county courtrooms, authorize the corresponding budget transactions, and further authorize the chairman to execute the necessary documents.
Commissioner Ott.
Motion to approve.
Second. We have a second. Discussion? Call the question. Passes 4-0 with Commissioner Gamble in absence. Thank you, Kimberly. I believe we had all public comment already?
Yes, sir.
Okay. And with that, I'd like to make a motion for the board to approve the appointment of John Ingram to the Property Advisory Board. Second. Discussion. Call the question. Passes 4-0. Commissioner Gamble in absence. Is Mr. Ingram here today? Okay, and with this appointment, we give our appreciation, deep appreciation to Bob Ash for the many years of service he gave to this board. All right, public commissioners' comments. Commissioner Rao, I'll let you go first.
All right, I just have one, and it's a reminder to everyone that the election season, it's like that never-ending thing, it seems, this year. But we have a runoff election on August 11th, and there's some very important positions that need to be decided. So what I would say is go to cobbelections.org. Early voting starts Monday. Those of elderly that checked the box, they had the option of checking a box to receive absentee ballots for any of the elections this year. Those 48,000 people, those ballots have already been sent out. So if you haven't gotten it yet, you should be getting in the mail shortly. But like I said, early voting starts Monday. You can go to the cobbelections.org site to see what locations and the times. There are 2 days of Saturday voting, July 25th and August 1st. That's what I got.
I had one slide for my presentations today that referred to the elections. And just in piggybacking what Commissioner Ott shared, I'm sorry that you need a magnifying glass to see this. Hopefully you have a larger screen at home. But it just lists that the main elections office will be open July 20th through the 7th for early voting. The other sites will only be open for 1 week. Please keep that in mind, but you can go to any of them. And that there will be 2 Saturday voting days available in the main election office for this runoff election. For more information, please visit cobbelections.org. And then you can go to the other slide. This is an advertisement that's being shared broadly to encourage people to be mindful that we are in the midst of a pandemic that continues to get worse, not only for us here in Cobb, but in Georgia and in the U.S. There are some basic things that we can do to slow the spread. One of the main things that you can do is wear a face mask, which you see your board doing up here. It's just very important as we recognize that there are a number of people who are more vulnerable than others, and there's some people who are asymptomatic. So we don't necessarily know who's spreading it, even if you feel well. So wearing that face mask just helps to reduce the likelihood of us spreading this. And I've seen things from even significant financial institutions saying this pandemic could be over in weeks for us here in the U.S. if we would just do this one thing. So please, I can't encourage you enough. I know at first I would be a little haphazard. I would sometimes run out my home. I would leave my mask at home. But now I'm just more concerned as those numbers go up. And my Facebook feed every day, somebody's dying every day that is connected to me. That makes me feel vulnerable, concerned, but also empathetic towards those that are experiencing death and just experiencing hardship with this. So please, whenever you can, wear a face covering. Be thoughtful to your fellow neighbor here in Cobb. Finally, just wash your hands, sanitize surfaces, and stay 6 feet apart. And lastly, one thing that COVID is showing us where our opportunities are, where our gaps are, and one thing that this disease is doing is revealing where our socioeconomic gaps are. And we've had several discussions internally, but also you've seen on the news where there are communities of color, particularly Black communities, are disproportionately impacted by this. And in listening to a woman speaking today just about what's going on with public safety and just the concerns of our officers, there are a lot of people who are stressed at this time with our parents trying to figure out what to do with their students. There's just a high level of stress, and stress makes us more vulnerable to disease. So, there are some people who may have the ability to better address those stresses, and there's some people who've continued to have stress even prior to COVID because of their financial circumstances. And I think that as we think about how we serve Cobb County, it's important for us to recognize all pockets within our county, because we want everybody to be able to do well and fare well, whether or not that's in a commission district or whether or not it's in a school. We want all of our students to do well, irrespective of their socioeconomic circumstance, which is why I'm very passionate about the vote that we had today, and I will continue to be passionate about the disparity that we have here in Cobb, because the expectations that we have for Cobb, all of the great things that we told about our county, it's for everyone. It is absolutely for everyone. And I will not be able to rest well until all of our communities are doing well. So I just ask that we all try to do our part and just be respectful of your neighbor when it comes to something basic like wearing a face mask. And if there's something that you can do to just be kind to your fellow neighbor and fellow man at this time, to your fellow public servants, to those who are in uniform, to those who are persons of color, to those that may not be faring well economically, to those dealing with the stress of working at home and having kids at home. Just be thoughtful that we're all going through this together, even in different ways, and we'll be better off if we are mindful of each other. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner. Commissioner Burrow.
Okay, we have some more veteran adoptions from our Superior Pet Program, thanks to Superior Plumbing. This is Miss Harris. She served our country in the U.S. Army for 14 and a half years. Thank you for bringing this handsome Chihuahua into his forever home. Isn't that a great picture? And thank you for your, oh wait, next slide. This is Miss Mobley, who served for 4 years in the Army?
30.
30 years, sorry, I'm in the wrong one. This is, okay, sorry. Thanks for giving this beautiful pit bull a forever home. 30 years of service in the Army, thank you. And this is Mr. Anzalone, who most of y'all probably know through our zoning meetings. Sure. He saw Stella online and immediately knew she would have a forever family in his home. She's an Australian cattle dog and fit in perfectly with the family. He served for 4 years in the Army. Thank you for adopting Stella. And then Mr. Mobley served 4 years in the Army. It's Army Day, Chairman. 4 years in the Army, and we thank him for bringing home this handsome, enthusiastic pit bull, Brindle Pit Bull, into his home and family. And this makes adoption number 152. Thank you to Superior Pets for funding this program, and thank you to Cobb County Animal Shelter for all their hard work and setting up appointments and getting these dogs and cats adopted. This is a picture, Commissioner Cupid and Gambrel were with us. I know y'all were out of town, the other two, and couldn't join us. But this is the new home, soon-to-be new home of the Veterans Memorial Site in front of the Aquatic Center on Fairground. And I'd just like to say thank you to the mayor and council members from Marietta that joined us, the Veterans Memorial Committee, and we really appreciate all the hard work in saying thank you to those Cobb veterans who have served. And the website for the memorial is cobbveteransmemorial.com. That was a great event on the Friday before the 4th. The Sprayberry Community Food Drive, there's still many in our community who are suffering due to the COVID pandemic. please consider donating food to the Sprayberry Community Food Drive from now until July 29th. You can drop off your donations at Piedmont Church, 570 Piedmont Road on Tuesdays, and then drive through to pick up food on Wednesdays through the 29th of this month. We also have a special for cats at the shelter this month. Through the end of the month, we have so many felines that we have a special adoption rate of $20. But of course, if you're a veteran, they're free. But to the public, $20 for, and take home your favorite cat. And I'd like to end with, first of all, I'd like to thank Ms. Torres for coming today and speaking up for our police. It was definitely a heartfelt presentation, and we appreciate her support. So the Cobb County Police Department has been involved in a tactical first aid program for several years. The program was designed to help officers develop skills to save citizens' lives when EMS is not at the scene of the incident. Since the beginning of the program, our officers have been successful in saving 77 lives with skills ranging from tourniquets to CPR use and more. So there's the numbers of the breakdown of the lives that have been saved. Thank you, Cobb County Police. In light of everything that's going on in our nation, many have expressed concerns about the police, while others felt compelled to write in support of our police. We've received a lot of emails saying that they stand behind our police 100%. And I'd like to read one letter from a resident that I think many of you may have gotten. I'm not sure, but I'd like to read it for the public to hear. And it goes, with so much unrest and talk of defunding the police departments around the country, I want to email you to emphasize our support for our Cobb County Police. We value the work you do every day and want to make sure you know it. I hope you will share our feelings and support with any in the department who may be feeling uneasy about whether they have the support of folks that live in the county. While I live in Precinct 1, go to church in East Cobb, play tennis in Lost Mountain, and shop in all parts of Cobb County. I value the environment here in Cobb and honestly feel it is the best county in the metro Atlanta area. While many things factor into my feeling that way about Cobb County, I know that some of that feeling has to do with the great work of the Cobb County Police Department in keeping the county safe. We are native Atlantans and have lived in DeKalb County, Fulton County, Gwinnett County, and finally moved to Cobb County around 10 years ago, so we certainly have the experience to make this assessment. Keep up the good work. Thank you for sharing your sentiments with us and your support. God bless.
Thank you, Mr. Burrow. You have some more stuff, right?
No, I'm done. Thank
Okay,
you.
there's some picture on the screen here that says it's yours.
That's just stay updated with my newsletter.
Okay. all right.
cobbcounty.org/Burl. Sorry.
No problem.
That's Aviation Park.
I'd like to just end on a very brief note. I've said on many occasions here, I'm really proud of this board. I encourage open and frank discussion, and every now and then I can handle some things a little bit better. So yesterday, I could have handled something with you, Commissioner Cooper, a little bit better. I apologize. Okay, I didn't mean to cut you off. Anyway, it was. I think that everyone knows by now that, and this board is always yelling at me that I let people talk too long, but I believe that that's a safety valve. That people have, you're elected. Everyone on this board here, they're elected. Commissioner Gamble's not here, but she was elected. And those that's been through this, maybe that's the reward we get, is that we get to speak openly, and as long as I'm the chairman, as long as you want. because you have a voice and a message to give. And I believe that the reason that we slowly make progress is because we all know where we stand. And I work very hard here to try to find, the middle ground where we can get all the requests of the commissioners to be fulfilled, because they're committed to their constituents. And today, we did a lot of great things. But I'm really proud of the fact that this board today stepped up to the plate and recognized the staff that came to work in March and March, April, and May, fully committed to their job and trusting that this board eventually would do the right thing, because as I call it, we do the speed of government here. It moves very slowly, but it moves slowly because we're a very conservative board, and we just take a little bit more time to do things and make sure we get it right. And I'm really proud of what the board has done today, but I'm really proud of what the board has done over the last several years for the staff, for this county, and for the people in this county, because I really believe in the end, we really all want to do what's best for the people. And there's some really tough calls we have to make here. But at least you all know where we stand, and I think if nothing else, that takes courage to do sometimes, because every time we vote on something, there's a tendency that there's one more person out there who's not happy with what we do here, but we have to live with that. But we're called to make the hard calls, and I'm really proud of this board. They can make those hard calls and feel equally proud that they know they can express their opinion in a way that's open and frank, that lets us know how they feel about it, because that lets us make a decision knowing full well the ramifications and consequences of our actions. So with that, I believe I'm going to adjourn this meeting, and then I got to adjourn the public hearing, right?
Yes, sir. We just move into the public hearing, which is item number 63. Now, if you
Okay,
want
so
to
we're
take a
gonna
break, you can take a break.
We're going to take a 10-minute break.
Okay.
And then come back at 11:30, okay?
11:30? Okay.
So, it's all yours, Sam.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman and Commissioners. It's a pleasure to be here this morning, and I feel a little self-conscious here in my patriotic mask. We all have learned to deal with that. If you'll indulge me for just one moment, Mr. Chair, I would like to dovetail on something that Commissioner Cupid said about the importance of wearing these masks and the crisis that we've faced. The mask I'm wearing right now was actually made by my wife, Ashley Ann, who, as many of you know, is the school director at the Georgia Ballet, right here in Marietta. She is also a fashion and costume designer, and when this pandemic began, we have a fashion studio for her in our home. She converted that to a mask-making facility and has created over 4,000 of these masks of various types and donated them to healthcare workers, doctor's office workers, assisted living facility personnel all over the country, literally from California, Wisconsin, Tennessee, Florida, where they couldn't find masks to protect themselves. She's not the only one in this county and in the metro Atlanta area doing this, but I'm very proud of her and all of these people that have come together in some way as a community to help us all fight this crisis. So I just want to give a shout out to her and to all of the people in our community who've found ways, even if they're not medical personnel themselves or the true frontline people that need the N95 masks, but can wear a mask such as this to show concern and consideration for each other and try to get this thing under control and get back to normal as soon as we can. So that was my little editorial today, and I appreciate you indulging me on that.
Thank you.
We're here today, Mr. Chairman, on an application by Ms. Ivy Janice Treadwell Garcia. I believe the agenda has her identified as Treadwell, but I've spoken to her. Her actual last name is hyphenated Treadwell Garcia, just for the record, so that we have her name correct. Her application for an alcohol work permit was denied administratively and therefore went on appeal to the License Review Board. The application itself was submitted on March 11th of this year. There was a background check, of course, and an application review that was conducted by the Cobb County Police Department Regulatory Services and Permits Unit. And at that time, there was found to be a disqualifying event in her past and her background, which I will let Detective Witt elaborate on, that disqualified her from getting the permit. So the application on appeal came before the License Review Board on June the 4th of this year. There was a lot of intense questioning and deliberation at that time due to the nature of the disqualifier. The LRB at that time voted to recommend approval of the application by a 3-2 vote. As you're aware, Mr. Chairman, our alcohol code under 6-207 I-2 requires that if there's not a supermajority vote at the License Review Board level for an alcohol work permit, it must come before this board to be reviewed either for a concurrence or to be pulled for an additional hearing. So this matter was pulled for a hearing today, and that's what brings us forth here today. So that's basically why we are here today. I have one witness just to set the background for what the nature of the violation was that disqualified the applicant. And with your indulgence, I will swear in all the witnesses first and then call my witness.
Generally, Sam, we allow opening statements from either side, so.
That's fine with me if she would like to.
If Ms. Treadway would like an opening statement, or just move right into the testimony? Testimony's fine, okay.
Okay. Microphone, do we have it? Right.
And just for the record, Ms. Treadway told me this moved right straight into the testimony, so.
Is it on? It is not. Minor technical issue, Mr. Chairman. If you will be testifying in this hearing or believe you may be testifying, would you please stand and raise your right hand? Do you swear or affirm the testimony you're about to give before this proceeding shall be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth? If so, say, "I do." I do. Thank you. You may be seated. Mr. Chairman, I would like to call Detective Bruce Witt. Good morning.
Good morning.
Could you state your full name for the record, please?
My name is Detective Bruce Witt,
And Detective, where are you employed?
Cobb County Police Department in the Alcohol Regulatory Services and Permits Office.
And how long have you been in that position, sir?
A year and a half.
Okay. And briefly give the board an idea of what your responsibilities are in that position, please.
At Alcohol Regulatory Services, we issue alcohol permits to people that are working within Cobb County. We also regulate the businesses that are tasked with serving alcohol in Cobb County. I do permit inspections at the businesses. We do underage compliance checks.
Very good. And are you familiar with Ms. Ivy Janice Treadwell Garcia, who is the subject of this appeal hearing today?
Yes, sir, I am.
And how are you familiar with her?
I appeared on the last hearing, the LRB hearing, after she came in and applied for an alcohol permit and was administratively denied.
And what was the basis for that denial?
The basis of the denial was 3 DUI convictions within the last 5 years.
Okay. So in the course of applying, that application came to your office, is that correct?
Yes, she comes into our office, fills out the application, and upon completion of the application, turns it into our staff. They complete a background investigation with a criminal history, and on her criminal history, it showed that she had been convicted 3 times in 2017 of DUI.
So all 3 convictions occurred in 2017?
The convictions, yes, sir,
Okay.
not the arrests.
Do you have the actual offense dates?
Yes, I do. The first offense date was 5/17/2014. The second offense date was 5/16/2015. And the third offense date was 9/12 of 2015. And all 3 were adjudicated in November of 2017.
And the Cobb Alcohol Code looks at the date of conviction, is that correct?
Yes, it is.
For purposes of the 5-year look-back period?
Yes, sir.
Correct. So did she disclose this information on her application itself?
Yes, sir, she did.
Okay, so you didn't have to wait until you received the results of a background check in order to find out about the DUI, is that correct?
That's correct, sir.
Okay. Once you had determined that there were these violations, what did you do with the application at that point?
My office, my sergeant actually had a discussion with her, fill out the paperwork, explain the appeal process to her, and asked if she wanted to appeal, and she did. She filled out the paperwork and came to the License Review Board.
Very good. That's all the questions I have, Mr. Chairman. Would you like to ask this witness any questions? That's all I have, Mr. Chairman. If the board would like to ask a
Any member of the
question.
board have any questions of the officer? Okay, thank you, Officer Witt.
Thank you.
Which one do you want first? Oh, do you want to do it separate? Oh, I see. Yeah, that's fine. Good morning. Thank you for seeing me. So, yes, when I went to apply for the liquor license, I, first of all, wasn't aware of what jurisdiction the restaurant that I had applied to and been hired at was in until after I started working, and they told me that I needed the license. I was there for just a few weeks before, I applied and was denied. I did put in that I had the DUIs. I wasn't trying to hide anything. Was not aware that that would be an automatic reason for me to be denied. When I was in the office, from my understanding, was whether I had the 3 DUIs within 5 years. And as you can see from the document on there, there are 2 out of 3 that are now older than 5 years, and the third will be older than 5 years come September. So I suppose I want to make clear that I wasn't trying to be, trying to get around anything. I just wasn't aware of the law and I wasn't aware of the statute. But I do want to take into consideration that between the first violation date, May 17, 2014, it took almost exactly 2 years for Fulton County, which was where the violation was, to bring it up into court. I did end up, pleading guilty to everything. I didn't try to fight it in court. I took what came to me in stride. I ended up doing over a year in an outpatient drug program, and I also did do some time in Cobb County Jail. So I suppose I want that to be taken into consideration as well. Within the last over 5 years since the first violation and almost 5 years since the last violation, I have paid a bit of penance to the county specifically for the things that I have done. Yeah, I suppose that's all I have. I do have this second piece here, a letter of recommendation from the boss that I was hired for, that I applied for the permit for. His name is Sean McCoy. Excuse me. He's the owner of Keegan's in Vinings in Smyrna. And he's just written, I've been found to be a great employee. I was hired as a bartender, but not just because of that. I've been working for 5 years in restaurants. I have plenty of certifications. I have a great resume, a lot of experience across the country, management experience, like I said, certifications through Georgia, ServSafe, food handler certification, a lot of other things that will also allow for me to be a manager and not just the bartender at the restaurant, but that does come with the territory, being able to serve alcohol to guests when necessary, helping the rest of the staff with that kind of job as well. So just want the board to take those things into consideration and hopefully rethink the denial of my permit, because I think I can be, I've worked for a very long time, 5 years now since those things happened, to be a productive member of society. Through the application denial and appeal process, the gentleman did mention that I had a pretty extensive interrogation from the last board. They asked a lot of personal questions about how I've come to be a better person and make better decisions than I used to. And I think I explained myself pretty well. I did in the application process. There was a long questionnaire about how I've changed and the strides that I've made. Since those things, I've gotten married. That's my wife there at the table. She can probably take all the credit for changing my life. But yeah, so I just want to be a productive member of the community, and from the letter, you'll be able to see that I'm appreciated at the job that I would love to do in Cobb County. Thank you.
Thank you.
Ma'am,
Those are passed along.
ma'am, the board may have some
Oh, I'm
questions
sorry,
for
yes.
you.
Does any member of the board have any questions? Commissioner Ott.
Thank you for the information you provided so far. I know that you kind of indicated that the License Review Board kind of grilled you. I would hope that by the end of today, you're not going to think that we grilled you. But at the same time, I mean, clearly with the information you've shown us, you're a good employee, you do the job well. But I do think that it is important for this board to hear, those 3 DUIs in such a short period of time. Clearly something was going on. And it appears that you have figured that out and have managed to remain sober. And I saw in your questionnaire that you went to AA and some other things like that. Are you still going to AA?
I don't know. I was sober for over a year, I would say almost a year and a half. I do drink now and then now, but definitely not to the excess that I used to.
Okay. So why did you stop going to AA?
Well, it was a requirement of the outpatient program that I was part of. But through that program and also working with the therapists that were there and outside of there, psychiatrists and, medication management, and actually through, there is, what is it called? The alcohol evaluation it was a mandatory part of receiving my driver's license back and part of the program that I went to, you know, I'm evaluated for my alcohol issue. Everyone agreed that that is not the base issue for me. It's a mental health issue for me, and that I have also dealt with. You know, I take medication daily now. I'm religious with it. But alcohol is not the stem of the problem. It's the mental health that causes the alcohol problem. So, you know, as long as I keep that under wraps, I'm okay to use alcohol sparingly.
I would say that most people that have an alcohol problem, it can be traced a lot of times back to mental health. And my concern is that, yes, you say that it stems to mental health. However, it manifested itself as an alcohol problem.
Sure.
3 DUIs in that short period of time. There may have been underlying mental health issues, but there was an alcohol problem. And so I have concerns when you say that you're drinking. Because whatever those issues were back, and it's, you know, I'm not going to have you tell us what those issues are. That's not the subject today. But whatever those issues were, they led you to drink and drive. And you got 3 DUIs. So I'm a little bit concerned to hear that you're drinking because how would this board know that that's not going to happen again? I mean, yes, I know you're on medication, but so I just, that was going to be one of my questions. Are you drinking now? But you already told me that. So
Sure.
that's all I have right now, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, do I have a second to respond, or is it? Okay. Well, on the DDS paperwork, I actually don't drive. I've chosen that just as a stopgap. But, you know, I've gotten used to it, and that's okay with me. But I suppose I also want to make clear that the drinking did manifest itself in the drinking and driving, but it also never had anything to do with work. At work, I'm a consummate professional, don't drink on the job. None of the situations with the DUIs had anything to do with my job, so.
Okay, so let's kind of talk about that a little bit. And I don't doubt the fact that you don't drink on the job and all that, but during that period of time where you had the 3 DUIs, you were not able to distinguish between when you were okay to drive and when you were not, okay? So as a person who's gets a license to serve alcohol, the county is entrusting in you that ability to know when someone else is not in a position to drive.
Sure.
Because besides, you know, all the 21 and knowing which way the licenses go and everything else, that's one thing. But part of what we are entrusting you with the licenses to serve alcohol is that ability to know when somebody's had enough or shouldn't get another drink. And my concern is that clearly during that period of time in your life, you weren't aware for yourself. And so, I mean, I don't doubt that you're a very hard worker and that you don't drink on the job, okay? But my concern would be, if you didn't know for yourself, how do we know that you're going to know for someone else? So that's all, Mr. Chairman.
Other comments from the board?
Yeah, I just have a question. You say you attended DUI court?
Yes.
Was that in Fulton County or here?
It was in Cobb.
Pardon?
It was in Cobb County.
It was in Cobb, our
Yes,
DUI
ma'am.
program? Okay, and you graduated from that program?
I actually didn't know I served time before I graduated the program.
Did you have to go back to?
No, once I was in the work release program at Cobb County Jail, everything wrapped itself up and I was no longer on probation or in the program as well.
Okay.
So, is it okay if I ask some questions, Commissioner Cubit? I'm a little confused. You were in DUI court, so you had to go back to jail because you broke probation? Is that what happened?
No, I never broke probation. I was moved from the program to jail for administrative reasons. I never failed a drug test or anything like that. I got kicked out because I was 1 minute late to a meeting one day, honestly.
Okay. And how long were you in jail?
6.5 months.
6.5 months.
Yes, because they revoked all of the time that I had already done in the program and did it as if it was day one from when I had had the violation or the disposition.
And how long ago was that?
That was in 2017, the disposition, and then I spent over a year in DUI court, and then 6.5 months after that in Cobb County Jail, and I got out last October.
Well, I gotta say, you paid your dues to society with 6 months. Look, I'm a compassionate guy. I'm gonna take it your word, okay? But I agree with Commissioner Ott. Long ago, when I was your age, all right, I was involved in programs, and I would really encourage you to go back to the AA meetings. It gives you structure. Now, there's no more structure than your wife, all right? I think that she gives you stability that you probably need in your life. But I also know that, I don't know of a better program than AA to make sure that you stay within those boundaries. But the fact that you're not going is not going to be a reason I'm not going to support, you getting your license. I think that the fact that you haven't, the DUIs were 5 years ago, and your behavior such has been that you've paid your dues, and I think you've learned your lesson. I mean, I don't know why anybody, after they spent one day in jail, would ever want to go back, do anything to jeopardize that freedom and liberty they have. I've never been in jail. I just can't imagine wanting to be there, and the fact you've been there for 6 months, that's just startling. But I do really want to encourage you to give Commissioner Ott's thoughts, and they're not meant to be paternal. They're meant to be, understanding and wisdom there. That it is a program that has worked. If not AA, then something of that equivalent, to make sure that every now you're reminded as to why you don't want to go back and fall back into that pitfall again. So I just echo that sentiment Commissioner Ott has. But having said that, the endorsement of the supervisor, he wouldn't have to say that unless he meant it. And I think that you're in a new world right now where you have a lot of obligations. You understand what those are. And those responsibilities will probably keep you on the straight and narrow anyhow. So with that, just want to let you know that we're supporting your renewal of your permit.
Thank you.
Ditto or likewise, I'll be supportive of your request. There are some people that have these different appeal stages and don't make it to this point and get discouraged because, once you do that time, I don't have to tell you, it's like you're constantly doing time. Everything is evaluation. And so you wear that with you in everything that you do. We have a responsibility to keep Cobb safe. We also are human, and we recognize things happen. And if there's something that's assuring to me, it's knowing that this incident happened 5 years ago. And since then, you haven't had a similar incident, and you've taken some very proactive, almost, I won't say extreme, but as extreme as a DUI is, you've chosen not to drive too. So I think that is a way that you've helped to safeguard yourself and help safeguard others. And, with other comments shared, know that you'll be mindful and hopefully just can put yourself in the shoes of others that you're serving, that you don't want them to go through this experience that you've had. But congratulations on what you've been able to accomplish, on being positive and going to school and working and being here today. It takes a lot to be able to stand up and plead your case when you're constantly being questioned, and you've taken that step. So look forward to supporting you today.
Commissioner Burrow? Sure.
When will you finish school?
I'm taking a summer semester. I should be done with my bachelor's within the next 2 years or so. I go to school all year long. I don't take the summers off. I want to, be as intensive as possible with it. So within 2 years, we'll have my bachelor's, and I actually want to go all the way through PhD. So it's going to be a long run.
And this is a request, this may be for you or staff. This is a request for a permit to serve.
That is correct.
And if it is granted, does it have to be renewed each calendar year?
No, it's every calendar year, correct? Every 12 months, yes, sir. From the date that it was granted, so it's not calendar like every December.
Okay.
Yes, so.
Like a business, like a
Correct.
license would be. So it would run from now till next year?
Unless, of course, there was something else that would interfere with it in between time. So, a violation of the
Right, a
person on the
violation.
permit, yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
May I ask a couple of follow-up questions
Sure,
real quick,
absolutely.
Mr. Chairman? And again, these questions are not designed to harangue or embarrass you. As the commissioners have stated, this is really to get to the basis of the question here. Are you a person that can be entrusted with the service of alcohol in Cobb County? Because it's not just about you and your welfare, and I applaud you for all the progress you've made. It's wonderful. But you said something that gave me a little pause at the beginning of your presentation. I think you said that you, well, tell me where you work.
Keegan's in
Keegan's.
Smyrna.
Okay, and where is that located?
In Smyrna on South Atlanta Road.
Okay, but that is a Cobb County establishment,
As I learned afterward, yeah.
as you learned afterwards. And I believe you said that you had worked for a while before realizing you needed a work permit. Is that correct?
It was just a couple of weeks before, yeah.
Did you serve alcohol during that time?
I did, but the job didn't.
So
tell
Keegan's
me
didn't
that-
inform you that you needed an alcohol work permit to work there?
I mean, honestly, not immediately. I don't know if they assumed that I had it because I had requested to work there. But since I've been in Georgia, I've only actually worked in Fulton County. That doesn't require it, so I was not aware that I needed that license. And like I said, they didn't inform me immediately.
Are you aware that as part of your application process, you're expected to know and understand the Cobb County Alcohol Code, and especially those provisions that relate to an alcohol work permit?
I'm confused on the question. I'm sorry. Will you say
Do you understand what is required of you under the Cobb Alcohol Code to be entrusted with the privilege of serving alcohol to the citizens of Cobb County?
Yes, no, I absolutely understand. Yes.
And one of those requirements is you cannot serve alcohol without a work permit.
Yes, I understand that now, yes.
But you didn't understand the rules, and you did it at the beginning of your employment at Keegan's. Is that correct?
Correct, but I was not aware, honestly, that it was in Cobb County.
I understand the reasons. And again, I'm not trying to browbeat you about this, but
Yeah.
this is the kind of thing that Commissioner Ott and the other commissioners, I think, are driving at. Is it's one thing to improve your personal life, and you've done a fantastic job of that, and I applaud you. But the real issue, would you agree, is are you a good person to be entrusted with following the rules to serve alcohol and prevent a tragedy?
Sure.
You understand that you're the last line of defense against an intoxicated person or an underage person being served alcohol
I absolutely do.
and doing what you did. You endangered the lives of other people on the road, correct?
I did.
And we don't want that to happen to other people, correct?
It will not, no, not
And
under my
it's your
watch.
job to make sure that that doesn't happen.
I think I can, yes.
Do you know how to distinguish an ID for an underage person?
Whether it's vertical or horizontal
Okay.
is one of the reasons. It's one of the ways, anyway.
That's all I have, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, so unless there's other comments, I'm gonna go, Commissioner Cobb, you have a comment?
Yeah, I was gonna make a motion.
Go ahead.
All right, I have one more question. You stated you don't drive, decide not to drive. Do you have a driver's license?
I have not gotten my license.
Okay,
I have been eligible since November, but I just have chosen not to.
okay. Mr. Chairman, I don't know where this is gonna go, but I have some concerns. The first one being that, and I agree with Mr. Hensley, you've done a phenomenal job, and I commend you for getting your life on track, okay? I have a concern, someone who has 3 DUIs that still drinks. Okay? That tells me that I don't think you've accepted the fact that you have a drinking problem. Now, that's gonna be my personal opinion. I have some history, or not history, but I have some very detailed information about alcoholism and things like that, and I just think that that's a concern. The second one, as Mr. Hensley pointed out, is as being the last line of defense, it is absolutely paramount that you understand what the county rules are. And in my mind, you don't. You served alcohol at Keegan's without having a work permit, you know, I just don't think that's an acceptable scenario.
I have not
Well, let
since-
me just finish.
Excuse me.
I am not comfortable at this time going along with the License Review Board's recommendations. So, Mr. Chairman, I make a motion to deny the service permit.
And I will second it. I too have the same concerns. I don't know when you started at Keegan's, but they should have informed you, but you have a responsibility to know the laws as well. And to be serving alcohol without a permit in this county is a concern.
Okay, so we have a motion and a second. I want to see the county attorney after this is over, along with Mr. Hensley. Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any other discussion? So the motion on the floor is to deny. So if you vote in favor, you're voting to deny the application for a permit, okay? So we make sure we understand that. So at this time, I'll call the question. All those in favor of the motion, please raise your hand. All opposed? So it's a tie vote. So we have to wait for what, Commissioner Gamble to come back? Okay, so we'll continue this we have one more commissioner who wasn't here today. She had a family obligation. And so we'll ask you for your forbearance until she comes back and votes on the issue. And we'll ask the county attorney.
Yeah, Chairman, I would suggest that it be moved over. We usually conduct these hearings on our day meetings.
Yes.
And so we'd move it over to the next day meeting, which would be August 11th, for her to be able to, she has to review the proceedings today, and then she would, at that time, she would come in and then be able to.
I think all she has to do is vote on it, though, right?
It has to be done at a public meeting, though.
Sorry?
Right, but we don't have a hearing.
We do not have another
She
hearing.
reviews this.
There's not another hearing. She'll have to conduct that, she'll have to place her vote at the next meeting that you schedule it for.
Morning.
Well, historically, y'all have done,
Yeah, but
so if you want to schedule it for July 28th, you can schedule it for July 28th.
last time we had a tie vote like that, we just called the motion and the commissioner that wasn't here voted for it and moved on.
Yeah, that's what I'm proposing. But she has to be able to, we put it on July 28th then.
I just don't see is there an issue waiting till another month, quite honestly.
No, he's saying you can put it on July 20th.
Right, yeah, that's what I was going to recommend.
Okay.
Okay. Okay, so we'll bring the motion back on July 28th for the Commissioner Gamble to cast her vote, okay? All right, with that, I believe we're adjourned, right? Okay, thank you.
Thank you.